Here.
Philip Harris.
Here.
Jennifer Guthrie. Richard Lamar.
Here.
Fallon Young. Dr. Mary Edward Long. Here. Jason Holt.
Here.
Brant Brown.
Here. We have a quorum, and the first item is to address the approval of minutes of the July 22nd, 2025 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved. Item number 4, we have a deferral. We need to vote on that, Andy?
Yes, sir.
We have a deferral of ZA 25-00034, Article 1124, Tattoo Parlor and Body Piercing Studio Zoning Text Amendment. Do we have any motions to defer that to the next meeting, Andy?
Yes, sir, please.
Motion to defer that item to the next meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have, item number 5, we have 4 public hearings. The first public hearing on the agenda is the Village of Brights Creek preliminary subdivision plat extension. Andy, that's you?
Yes, sir. Before I get started on that, I'd like to just go over the public hearing guidelines for the members of the public who are in our audience today. So city staff will present the application. After we present the application, the chairman will open the public hearing. If you want to address the commission, please step to the microphone and address your questions, comments to the commission. If someone has repeated something you'd like to say, you could just say, I agree with the last gentleman or the last lady that spoke. The chairman will then close the public hearing. And at that point, the commission will vote on each application. And just as a reminder, if you do have a cell phone, please silence those before we get started so that we're not constantly interrupted. Thank you. And with that, we'll go into the first item. It is application number ZA 2529. It's a preliminary subdivision plat extension request for the Village at Brights Creek. The applicant is requesting a 1-year extension on their preliminary subdivision plat. This subdivision is located at 18813, 18837 Oak Road West and 6392 Ralph Sanderson Lane. Here are a few maps on the screen. The subject property is highlighted. I'm going to guess that's blue. I'm colorblind for those who are here in the audience. So to the east is the city sportsplex. To the west are mostly residential houses within the George Street, Booney Lane area. This area, most of that area is actually not zoned in the city. Also, there's also shoal lanes in that area. The proposed subdivision fronts on County Road 6 and backs on Brights Creek. So this property is currently under construction for a 76-lot single-family subdivision. It's at 43 acres. The zoning is split basically halfway between the western portion is R14, which is single-family residential, and the eastern portion is R3, which is multifamily, low density. So back in November 14th of 2023, this application received preliminary subdivision plat approval, which allowed the applicant to then proceed with application for land disturbance permit and begin construction of the development. At that planning commission meeting, there were 11 conditions attached to the approval. I'll just highlight a couple. The original original plan was to use a drainage easement on the sportsplex property for the drainage or some of the drainage on this development. That condition stated if an easement is not granted, the revised drainage plans must be submitted for staff approval. I'll get to that a little bit later in the report, but so I wanted to highlight that one. Then number 10, all tree protection fencing must be installed prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. And then the applicant also had to obtain a turnout permit from Baldwin County because this portion of County Road 6 is under the jurisdiction of Baldwin County. So here is the approved preliminary subdivision plat. Again, it's on a 43-acre piece of property. It will be developed with single-family houses. It complied with the R14 and R3 minimum lot standards, as well as the open space standards. So if you're looking on this on the screen, on the left-hand side is Oak Road West. To the right-hand side is Brights Creek. You've got two entry roads from County Road 6, one which is new. The applicants, the northern entry is they're using an existing shoal lane, which is kind of a dead end lane right now that is developed on either side with duplex units. This is a very similar to preliminary or final plat approval. An extension request must be publicly notified. We sent public notices to property owners within 100 feet of the site as required by the subdivision regulations. So the applicant is requesting a 1-year extension. They state in their request that after approval of preliminary plat, start of construction was delayed, basically in order to coordinate with the city of Gulf Shores to provide an alternate plan and address issues with on-site tree protection and trees. So a little bit of a development timeline. Again, this preliminary plat was approved in November of 2023. April 4th and June 13th of 2024, the applicant met with city staff for some pre-construction meetings. August 6th of 2024, a land disturbance permit application was made, and then that land disturbance application was approved with conditions on September 12th, 2024. Those conditions, my recollection, revolved around installation of some tree fencing, as well as they couldn't do work in, I think, 2 areas due to some issues with their tree survey, not showing some of the protected trees that were on the site after the city inspected it. Under the analysis portion of this report, subdivision regulations, section 4-4F, effective period of preliminary plat approval, indicates that preliminary plat is binding for 2 years, subject to the following. If the land disturbance permit has been issued and construction has commenced prior to the 2-year expiration date for a good cause, the Planning Commission may extend the approval of an expiring preliminary plat a single time, not to exceed 1 additional year. So the way that reads is, you guys, if you choose to extend it, you can only extend it for a maximum of 1 year. You could extend it for increments less than that. There's also a section under 4-4 preliminary approval expiration. That section states that a preliminary plat shall expire after the 2-year approval period, and a new subdivision shall be submitted in accordance with the subdivision regulations if changes have occurred to the subdivision regulations, zoning ordinance, or zoning map, which make an approved subdivision non-conforming. B, no land disturbance has been issued and construction is not commenced to extend streets, utilities, or other infrastructure improvements. Or C, the Planning Commission has not granted an extension for the preliminary plat. So you guys will remember at last month's meeting, the July Planning Commission meeting, you all approved an amendment to the minimum street standards within the subdivision regulations. Basically, those that was at the recommendation of the city engineer. Our current street standards are basically not up to par with some of the other municipalities around the area, as well as ALDOT standards. So that amendment approved the pavement construction and base requirements. It also required a higher strength concrete for sidewalks, curbing, and drainage type infrastructure, and required thermoplastic traffic markings instead of just regular paint. The reason for the amendment was we've got some subdivisions that have been constructed that are maybe 5 years or a little bit older, and some of their pavement is already dilapidated. The sidewalks are not holding up. So basically, the amendment was to try to get a longer lifespan out of our streets, which, as you know, generally most of these subdivisions they build the streets And then approximately 2 years later, they turn it over to the city for maintenance. So we want to make sure when we accept a street for maintenance, it's going to hold up for longer than 5, 10 years. Hopefully we'll get 20 years out of it. So with saying that, that amendment made the Brights Creek preliminary subdivision plat non-conforming. Their street standards were approved under the old regulations. So obviously they do not meet the new street standard regulations. Here's just a diagram. The section on the left shows the street standards which were approved for Brights Creek. And the diagram on the right shows the updated street standard specifications. I'm gonna let Jenny describe that if you have questions, but that is just basically to show you kind of the differences. It basically requires a larger wearing surface and then a base. I think the old one was a sand clay base, and now it's a B base, which is gravel. Is that correct? Okay, it's ALDOT standard. So that's two of the big changes that were made. Well, here we go. There we go. Stop work. Oops. So a little bit of history. The city's placed 4 stop work orders on the construction of Brights Creek subdivision. August 22nd, 2024, a stop work order was placed on the subdivision. They were clearing trees prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. And prior to all of their tree protection being installed. That stop work order was lifted on September 10th of 2024. And again, the land disturbance permit was issued 2 days later. July 2nd, a stop work order was of 2025. A stop work order was issued by the city engineering department. Stop work order was issued because of a rain event caused problems with their the site's best management practices, as well as erosion control and drainage devices. There's some photos of the issues on the screen, and that stop work order was lifted on July 7th, 2025. July 31st of 2025, a stop work order was issued by the engineering department. Similar circumstances, a rain event caused runoff to enter Brights Creek, as well as adjacent properties. I think one unit of one of the duplexes on Shoal Lane was flooded in this event, and that stop work order was lifted August 13th of 2025. And then I believe this was Saturday, another stop work order was issued by the engineering department because the contractor was illegally discharging the water from the detention pond into Brights Creek. And that stop work order is still in place. Engineering department has also issued, they've been performing inspections throughout the development or construction. They've noted several failed inspections. April 24th of 2025 was a failed inspection based due to silt fencing not installed, also issues with the BMPs, and other issues. June 3rd, 2025, failed inspection, again, inadequate installation of BMPs and erosion and sedimentation control issues. And then July 29th of 2025 was another failed inspection, issues with installation and maintenance of best management practices, as well as stabilization of the detention ponds. I placed a slide in the report in the presentation because in your report, there was a section that stated that they were non-compliant with Gulf Shores utilities. Subsequent to that report going out on Friday, we have received some testing reports. This is concerning a water line. The applicant had to replace and relocate a water line that goes, my understanding, goes from County Road 6 through this development and then ties into an existing water line on, I think it's Booney Lane. So some of the residential areas to the northwest of this. We were concerned on Friday when the report went out that this may not have been installed in accordance with the Gulf Shores utilities requirements. We have received some testing information from the applicant's engineer. We believe it's probably been installed according to Gulf Shores utilities regulations. That's still And this report is still under review by Gulf Shores Utilities. And they are here to answer any questions. There have also been some design changes with the subdivision since preliminary plat approval. Several drainage plan redesigns. Again, if you recall, a condition of the original approval was for them to use an outlet on the Sportsplex property for drainage. That did not work. So the applicants revised their drainage plans to basically take the drainage out to County Road 6. That was reviewed and approved by the city on February 27th, 2024, which is, 6 months prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. There's also a huge heritage live oak tree, 60 inches, that is located on the site, kind of near. There used to be an old house on the kind of the front of the site. That tree was, I believe, either right to the front or to the rear of that house. So they redesigned the drainage plan to make sure that the roots were not going to be impacted by their drainage ponds. That was approved October 16th, 2024. And then kind of during the original inspections by the city arborist, when we were right before we issued a land disturbance permit, there were originally two cul-de-sacs on that northern end of this development. One of the cul-de-sacs, when the arborist got out there were trees shown in the location of the cul-de-sac. So we worked with the applicant's engineer to redesign. It happened to be both cul-de-sacs to preserve the trees. So if you kind of the diagram on the left shows the trees in kind of a loop that was redesigned to save those trees, basically putting them in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And then the diagram on the right shows kind of the overall redesign of both cul-de-sacs. The cul-de-sac on the right-hand side became an L, and the L shape is so that the fire can continue to meet the fire code for fire access. The cul-de-sac on the left became more of a loop to try to preserve those trees in the middle of the cul-de-sac. So after this was approved, I guess the city arborists went out there, and some of the trees, or most of the trees, or maybe all the trees within the middle of that cul-de-sac had been removed. Those are 5 protected trees with a total DBH of 104 inches. That change was approved April 14th of 2025. And then there's another drainage plan redesign. I think this was after the flooding occurred at the front of the subdivision near the kind of the secondary entrance near Shoal Lane. The city engineering department worked with the applicant's engineer to redesign that drainage pond, so hopefully to prevent any future flooding in that area. So with that, we have 2 options for recommendation. Option 1, deny the preliminary plat extension for the Village of Brights Creek subdivision based on it being a non-conforming with our current regulations. And we would have one condition tied to that option 1. That condition is the land disturbance permit shall remain active to only allow the developer to maintain the stormwater management facilities in accordance with city, state, and federal regulations. So if, just to kind of recap, this application or this subdivision technically expires November 14th of 2025. If the Planning Commission chose option number 1 and it was denied, the applicant basically would have 2 options. Work very fast and complete the subdivision prior to November 14th of 2025, or reapply for preliminary subdivision plat approval, which would require the new city street standards, and they'd have to, build their streets to that standard. The other option is conditionally approve the extension between 1 and 12 months. I just kind of left it, or city staff left it open-ended, because the maximum you could approve an extension is 12 months. You may want if you choose option 2, you may want to, only approve it for 2 months, 3 months, I don't know. Contingent on, there's numerous conditions here. Number 1, all conditions of preliminary subdivision plat approval shall still apply. Number 2, remediate the 5 trees, 104 dBH removed from common area number 8. There's an unapproved spoil site that's located on lot 71 through 74 that shall be removed. All concrete poured within the right-of-way shall be 4,000 PSI minimum. That's a new standard. There is no concrete poured out there at this point. So staff feels like they can meet that new standard. And then 5, pretty much the rest of the conditions are inspections between the developer's engineer and city engineering department and utility company shall be scheduled with the city at the following construction milestones. And I'm not going to read all this, but commencement of land disturbing activities, street subgrade preparations, C, placement of all drainage pipe, culverts, manholes, and other drainage structures, D, street sub-base preparations, street base course placement, F, street wearing surface placement, G, compaction test, curb and asphalt construction shall be constructed Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. That's the time that the city's engineering inspector is at work. Then H, failure to do steps A through G will result in a stop work order. And then I, final inspection, the engineer shall inspect and approve all improvements to the subdivision and verify that they've been completed per the plan specs. As built shall be submitted prior to final plat submission. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Commissioners, do you have any more questions for Andy? Regarding those other conditions that you read, because we didn't have a hard copy of that, has that been circulated at all?
No, sir.
I would like to read it over again.
I can put them back on the screen.
Well, if we have no more questions from the planning commission, we will open the public hearing. Ma'am?
I had two.
Ma'am, if you please stand up. at the
Again,
microphone.
please come to the microphone, state your name, where you live, and address the commissioners.
My name is Betsy Dozier, and I live at 6505 George Street. And we've been there 20 years or more now. I had two questions. One, did they relocate the turpin nests? That was an issue at a prior meeting that we had. And two, what is the consequence for the developer if they continually disregard the standards? Is there a consequence?
So I'll answer question number 1. At preliminary plat approval, there was a question about, I think, some tortoises on this property. Gopher tortoises. Those, and the applicant's here, but I know they trapped several tortoises out there and relocated them to another property.
Okay, thank you.
The question number 2, what's the consequences? I mean, the consequences, Jenny can answer it better than I can, but stop work orders are one of the consequences. So.
Well, if they cut down those trees,
So some of the consequences, we have our stop work orders for some of the runoff into the creek. ADEM has criteria that they need to follow. So ADEM has been contacted about this and will be in touch with the developer to determine what would be applicable there. Trees.
For cutting down trees, there's some remediation requirements in our tree protection regulations.
It'll take years to get
In
those.
general, so you got to, I think it's 104 inches DBH that were cut down. So I think they've got to replace those with, let me think. My recollection would be about 33 trees of a certain, I think they're 12 feet tall, 3-inch caliper, or pay a fee based on the price of the trees that were cut down.
Thank
But as you just stated, obviously, a full-grown tree that's cut down is not, our ordinance has fines and different things, but it does not necessarily replace a full-grown tree.
Oh,
Made an
All right.
entrance, didn't I? Leave it up to me. Hello, my name is Catherine Etheridge, and I live at 3818 Stafford Boulevard in the Aventura subdivision. This development is a half a mile east of our neighborhood, and our roads and streets and sidewalks were built by this developer. And they've not been accepted by the city because they were built poorly. And so in July, you, the planning commissioners, they talked about it earlier, approved a revision in the city's concrete and asphalt regulations so that the citizens of Gulf Shores could have better streets and be up to code. Why wouldn't those rules be enforced for this contractor and developer? It just, they build and develop substandard stuff. We've seen it across this city, not only in Aventura, but there's other areas as well. And we, the people that live in Aventura, are dealing with this on a daily basis, every day. So thank you for your consideration.
Andy, could you comment on our policy on newly adopted ordinances and when they would apply to developments, just to answer her question? Why this one that wasn't required to meet the.
Yeah, so this development, again, it was approved in November of 2023. They comply with the street standards that were in effect at that time. We recently updated those street standards. So typically, new subdivisions going forward will have to comply with those.
And that's fair, but they don't have streets yet.
one at a time, please.
Yeah, they haven't, they don't have streets yet. So, I mean, it's not going to help us in Aventura, but it will help further developments. And I guess that's what I'm getting at. It'll help these people that are going to live in this neighborhood if it moves forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing me. I'm Jane Wetteroff. I live 6567 George Street. Known the house since the early 70s, provided the commission with 151 pages from 1989 why this shouldn't have even started. The flooding, the erosion, the change of natural flow of water, nature overall. 68 Ventures is D.H. Horton, which is Truland, which has multiple lawsuits over the county, not just the city of Gulf Shores. And they are pending, so this is going to take how long to get this straightened out? They're not abiding by the rules you set. They've taken down trees, everything you stated, they've broken every rule you set for them. And it requires people calling the police. I started documenting when they started taking down the trees, what time they started in the morning. None of that. 67 days they started before the time. I'm not going to call Gulf Shores PD to say, hey, you guys started at 6:30 in the morning. But for my neighbors who live behind there, that's ridiculous. My house is now going to cost me and my property $1,600 to have erosion problems repaired because it's coming over the street because there's nothing holding it there anymore. The water goes down the street, it goes to the path of least resistance. So, kind of going back to I agree with the lady who is in, they are dealing with the same things because it's the same developer. If you know the problem, that's just common sense. Don't let them develop in your county. The Gulf Shores utilities problem, that came up when our water suddenly turned white. We all were flushing our toilets thinking there was something that was wrong. Some of us still have pumps. It's not solved. It comes up about every 7 to 10 days. It's flowing into Brights Creek. You can see it. It's just going to happen. There's neighbors that I'm down from that it's sitting in their driveways making mud pits. It's losing property value. A lot of us in the neighborhood, this is causing our properties to drop because people don't want to be in a neighborhood where they already know there's problems. So I ask for your consideration to just halt this, penalize them, whatever the city needs to do, and hold them accountable for the damages that they've done. Thank you.
My name's Carrie Urick, and I live at 6603 George Street. And you are talking about 5 heritage trees being removed. Well, I have sat there for the past year and watched hundreds of heritage trees be cut down and hauled out of there in semi-trucks for months. When you tell me 5 trees, I find that ridiculous.
So so they are allowed as part of the subdivision, the approval to remove a certain amount of trees because they're within their proposed streets. The 5 trees that we're talking about were removed that are outside of those areas. I know they cut down a lot more trees, but they were approved to do that at preliminary subdivision plat approval.
My name is Phil Rosenblatt. I live on Booney Lane, and I am more closely affected by what 68 Ventures and D.R. Horton are doing over there than anybody in this room. Is there anybody here who has not seen this? My wife has a whole stack of them, and you really need to look at it to see what's going on. Anybody need one? My wife has a whole stack of them. Okay.
I'd like to see.
Ma'am,
May I see?
I can't. I'm deaf.
Here, there's,
Thank you. I want to see
Good.
it.
D.R. Horton and 68 Ventures share a common side lot line with me that is 25 feet on the east side of this picture. This picture was taken exactly 1 month ago today, and I sustained a flood. Not just a little water, a hell of a lot of water. There are several pictures
Sir?
in here.
Sir,
This is the one that shows my driveway.
hey, sir, can you address us?
Oh, this is the one that shows my driveway. You see this flood over here? D.R. Horton's
Can you,
side lot lines.
sir, why don't you show that to us up here?
Do what?
Can you show us the pictures when you're talking? Address us,
Okay.
please.
D.R. Horton's side lot line is 25 feet to the east of this picture, which was taken 1 month ago today.
Thank you.
Horton and I share a common side lot line, which is 730 feet long. My wife and I have lived in that home since 1991, and not once, ever, have we experienced a flood. Horton brought 2 huge mounds of dirt in to raise the grade of that property. And I'm talking serious amount of dirt. These piles were probably 2.5 stories tall, if I have to guess. They took all that dirt down and graded it. The problem is, instead of grading it to the east, they graded it to the west, and all the water came on me. My driveway has been eroded. My pond, where all this runoff went, has probably got 6 inches of brand new sediment on top of it. So, obviously, they graded it the wrong way. They graded it to the west and not to the east. I talked with a man who is apparently the ramrod for 68 Ventures, a man named Clemenson, young man, nice young man. And he apparently is the head honcho for that operation over there. We talked about several things. One of the main things we talked about was the mitigation of the gopher tortoise. The gopher tortoise, he informed me that they had captured 5 and packaged them up and sent them off to somewhere else where they would be nice and safe. That's wrong. Before all this started, one of my neighbors and I went over there on a 4-wheeler, and in 30 minutes we found 5 active gopher tortoise tunnels. You could tell they were active because there was fresh dirt right around the top. He went back over there with somebody that supposedly really knew what they were doing about 10 days later and found 20 more. 20, so that's 25 that 2 of us have found. So there are a heck of a lot more gopher tortoise than they wanted to let on to. A lot more. But is there anybody that has not seen this? That's about all I've got to say. But there are a lot more turtles over there than they will let on to, and they have killed every one of them. When they put all that dirt on top of those tunnels, and are going to put concrete or asphalt on top of that, they will kill each and every one of them. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Vern Pugh. I live at 18899 Booney Lane, and that's the corner of Booney Lane and George Street. Andy, is it Andy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As I look at this report, the staff recommendation is to deny. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what's that based on?
That is based on the existing street standard, or the new street standards. The old subdivision does not comply with the new street standards, so is now non-conforming.
Okay. Is that the only reason?
That's the primary reason, yes, sir.
Okay. One of the things I'm concerned about is the runoff. We live on Brights Creek, and I've spent almost $100,000. We just moved here a year ago last May, and I've spent almost $100,000 on boat docks. And it's just right down from where they're dumping and where it's running off into the creek. And the creek has changed. The creek has changed. And it doesn't need to change. The quiet little subdivision that we moved into is not so quiet anymore. One of the things that's happened is when they cut all those trees down, the noise from the stadium, from the soccer fields or whatever, has greatly increased. Greatly increased. And the noise of the construction is another thing entirely. I mean, if there's construction, there's going to be noise. But we used to sit on our screened-in front porch at night and drink iced tea and enjoy it. And we could hear the stadium off in the distance, but now it's like, you know, it's 100 yards away. It's loud. And so there's a noise pollution thing that has become involved in this as well. So I'm glad to see that you're recommending denial. I think there's a lot more reasons than that to deny. They either don't understand or they don't care what's expected of them, obviously. And they need to be held accountable for that. And if that means to redo all this and we've got to come back for more hearings and hold their feet to the fire, then we'll do that. So, thank you.
Just a comment, Mr. Pugh, the denial of extension, our ordinance is specific to how we can deny an extension. But I think we all recognize the other issues as well, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Way back when this whole thing was approved, I stood right up here and said, don't do it. It was gonna flood. Oh, everything's, and now we know that. And and of course it's happening. And on top of that, this 68 Ventures group, I don't know if do y'all know them? I mean, both of you in real estate. So do y'all know them? Frank, do you know them?
Yes, sir.
You know him? Well, I talked to the guy that this morning, that Clemenson, and he was just rude. I said, well, would you fix all these things? He said, I've done whatever they've asked me to do. Now that's a quote on the phone, okay? I've done whatever they've asked me to. And that's just not true. I want to say to the staff, I'm grateful that y'all are doing your jobs. I mean that. Because we have got to stop this. We got to stop it. And let me tell you about the 68 Ventures group. I drive to Fairhope quite frequently, and I go up 181. There is a property over there, it was one of theirs. It was just an open field. Wasn't a tree on it. So clearly, I mean, we're talking about ideal to put houses, right? They still don't have houses on it. They have been working on that thing for months. And I think there's a money problem with that whole organization. And I said to him on the phone, he just got real upset about it. I said, is there really a money problem here? Y'all really don't have the money to do this? That's what I think the real problem is. They're not going to fix anything. They don't have the money. I just know it. I'm pretty good at these kind of things. So I just know when somebody, I said to him today on the phone, I said, now, will you tell me that you will do this thing right from this point on? He said, I don't have to give you my word on anything. That's exactly another quote. I have no patience with a man like that. None. So I asked y'all, and here's the thing, and this is a big question for the whole city thing. There has to be fines, and they have to be enough to stick. $5,000, $10,000. Pay it in 10 days. None of this, oh yeah, we'll drag it on and we'll meet next month and we'll all talk about it. You know, a man that's going to do what he says he's going to do is going to do it. And I can assure you this group is not going to do it. Thank you. Mickey Ezel. Thank you.
My name is Vicki Race. I live on George Street. And behind me directly and three other, well, all the way back all behind me is where they're putting that retention pond, but I call it a ditch. 'Cause I mean, that's what it looks like. Saturday is the fourth time they've come out there to where it's just caving in. There's just caving in. They've come back and had to push it all back up. And Saturday, the cops were called out there, and they told the cop that they were getting it ready for Monday to put in irrigation pipes and that they were going to plant grass. Well, I don't see where that's going to solve the problem about it sinking in every time we get a lot of rain. I think there needs to be rocks or something out there, because I don't want my property sinking in. I've lived there 32 years, or my neighbors. So, thank you.
Okay. Yes, you want to speak?
Oh, sir. Right. My name is Ilanka Hobson, and I live at 420 Pogue Street. That's in the Aventura community. I agree with a lot of what's been said, but I think there's some other issues that hasn't necessarily been brought up. And I was just talking to my neighbor here about it, and it's because we're seeing this every day. And it's because there's communities being allowed to be built and built and built without other infrastructure in place for those new communities, which is causing so many problems as far as safety is concerned. And I'm going to say this because we are now a cut-through neighborhood. We're not the only neighborhood with this problem. I feel like people have said that Kraft Farms is also having this, same problem, where people are, I don't want to wait on 59. They'll cut down Oak Road, cut down our Stafford, and they are flying. They are going 50 miles an hour, and I'm not exaggerating. Okay, there have been speed traps put out there, and it's even worse in the mornings when there's buses picking up kids and they're flying around the buses. And that is huge, okay? Someone's gonna end up dead. And I'm not even exaggerating. It's not when, it's not even if, it's when. And the other problem is because of all these other neighborhoods being built around us, granted, we're new too. We're only 4 or 5 years in ourselves, do you know what I'm saying? But there's no sidewalks. There's no sidewalks whatsoever for these kids in our neighborhoods to walk safely to and from the sportsplex, to and from the community center, to and from like the golfing place. And then you're putting this little 68 Ventures over here around a corner. Remember, it's coming around a corner. You know what I mean? And they fly around that corner too. So now you're going to have another neighborhood full of kids without a neighborhood that's got any kind of safety, like a yield coming, you're coming around a corner, slow down. There's no sidewalks for these kids to walk, there's no way for them to walk safely from this new neighborhood to the sportsplex without getting run over, or some kind of way for them to go from that neighborhood on the backside maybe to walk directly into the sportsplex area. My problem is that, we keep developing without thinking about our own families, our own kids' safety, and then we're talking about the environmental things that they're talking about, and then we're talking about our sidewalks. She just talked about that, but the thing of it is that's great that we fell in the old, but when they repaired it, it still looks bad. Do you know what I'm saying? It looks awful, and some of it even now isn't done correctly. There's actually huge gaping parts of the streets that are still not repaired correctly, and when people are flying through and using us through a cut through, it's just not acceptable, and we've asked for, speed bumps. City said no. We've asked for, multiple speed traps. The city has done that. They put, the cops have come and put those on there too. But the problem is, we don't know how to solve the problem. The city tells us one thing, we're told another by whoever, you know what I mean? And we just have no clear answer about how to keep our kids safe. And that's what my main concern is, and I'm hoping you'll take that in consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Hello, I'm Patrick Payne. I live at 18974 Booney Lane. I'm across the street from Phil's. And I've got a problem in the back. At the back of my house is the beginning of this development. Okay, I did have a wind row of trees back there. Well, they've taken everything out back there, all the trees. It's just, I look out my backyard and all I see is a brown dirt field beyond my grass, or whatever you want to call grass. But I'm worried about the grade behind my house. I want to make sure they don't build it up beyond my property, because if they do that, I'm going to get all that runoff coming right back into my house, which my runoff is going to go to Phil's house or Rick's. So my driveway's already starting to run out from the water. Okay, that's one issue. Turtles, he's right about the turtles. There was a total screw up there. They say they only had found 5. Now, I found 5 in my driveway before. So unless it's the same 5, and I don't think so. But I know they've killed them because I can sit back there. They don't care. And you know they don't care. The traffic issue that she was talking about, County Road 6, it's ridiculous. And then you've got all these dump trucks that are full going up and down, and all this other stuff. The fog line, or the shoulder or the fog line of the road on both sides by the sports complex is destroyed. You go off on the side, you're going to rip a tire to all to hell. I've called before. The city actually took a year for Public Works to get out to fix one of the ruts that I called in. I don't know why it shouldn't take that long. I'm retired Public Works. It don't take that long. What else? Where else am I? Hey, I know there's no way to stop this thing, but somebody's got to get it to where it's actually a feasible project. I mean, everybody's getting flooded. The trees are come down. They took trees out that weren't supposed to be there. It looks like hell. I've got all the, their bulldozer and whatnot are coming back, of course, right back by my property. So I've got stuff rattling off my walls. And it's constant. The noise is constant. I mean, you hear beep, 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 beep all the damn time. I know they have to work on this stuff, and I know they've got to have the beepers on it, but good God, I mean, wish somebody would have taken this stuff all into consideration at the beginning of this project. They were supposed to have had an area of green space that would have separated my yard and the beginning of whatever they're doing back there. Well, they've set a storm box back there, and there ain't going to be much room for any green space. I mean, I've got weeds that are probably wider than what this is going to be. But anyway, long story, I just seen you denied them from anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Baston, or Richard Baston, whichever, according to my wife's yelling at me or not. We need, I think, a lot of what everybody's talking. I'm next door to Phil, across the drained area, across from them. And I brought this up the last meeting last year when this thing came to fruition. We need a wall built will solve about 90% of our problem. And I'm not talking about some little bitty thing here. I'm talking about a 6 to 8 foot wall, barrier wall, just like you see on the highways and everything else. That's going to make a huge difference, because we know what's fixing to happen. We've all lived in areas where other growth has had, and we're down toward the water. We're going to have people walking through there. We're going to have kids. And the first time one of those children falls in that water and it's on, and Phil and I split a pond down there, somebody's going to be trying to sue us because the kids fell in the water now. And that may feel like that's out of portion, but I have been around when that has happened, when the people were perfectly innocent. a wall from around field coming all the way up to the road to block all this mess would isolate us back to where we were in the country. 90%, like I say, not gonna get it all, but it's gonna protect our property, and where hers is eroding off into that area, you know, and we don't want to look at a big ditch, and that's what it looks like. We're not interested in that. But the privacy's about gone, but I'll just keep repeating. At my age, I can do that. We need a wall put up, and they sort of shrugged it off last time. But all these people here that live out there next to us and around us have got the same issues. And I believe that will solve a lot of it right there. But none of this stuff here, I'm talking about up here, just like you see on highways and everything else, that'll cut the noise out, keep children from coming across that thing and getting to that water. And they're going to. I know how mine used to be. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And we didn't get an answer last time, but we sure would appreciate. That'd be money well spent for them. And I think the answer we got last time was, put no trespassing signs up. I think that's what we got last time. Well, there are some that got no trespassing signs already, but they're gonna walk right through them. We got people coming and going on that road. I ran over 3 this morning that I knew they didn't belong to any of us. They were down the road, they came down, went through the field, came back out, went back to the complex. And they had work boots on. Tell me that, they were running and they had work on. So they didn't belong. That's what's happening to us. Our privacy has been destroyed. Here we go again. That 6 to 8 foot wall is going to resolve about 90% of that. And then if we want to put something in the back of it, don't find the wall, that's their position if they want to do that. But if they're coming down through there, and they're going to, I'm telling you, children are going to do that kind of thing. And some of these adults that act like children are going to do that kind of thing. They're going to get up and somebody's going to get hurt, and then we're going to have a mess. And I would love, like everybody else, to know who we could call. Y'all do a great job for us. No complaints. But these people here, I like to have somebody's number to call first time somebody comes across that doggone field and trips in my yard and wants to raise Cain about something. I'd like to have somebody's number to call with this big company. They're not an Alabama company, and I won't go there. But one more time, the wall needs to be built.
Is the developer here to share any responses?
My name is Dorothy Barker, and I'm an attorney for State District. And I wanted to address the application for extension, but also wanted to introduce you to experts on this project, who include our CEO and the other individuals, some of whom have been referenced in the community's comments today. Drew Dolan is on the end here. He's our CEO. Jacob Clemenson.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Yeah.
Jacob Clemenson, can you hear me now?
It's on.
Oh, it is?
You got to speak up.
I got to speak up. Okay, I'll do better. Let me start. Drew on the end, our CEO of 68 Ventures. Jacob Clemenson, project manager for this project. Chloe Kelly in the middle. She's our director of operations. And then with Dewberry, the engineering firm that has been involved in this project since the outset, is Cherise Brannon and also Kathy Burnett. Kathy is the senior environmental scientist and planner, and Cherise is our project manager. But in order to provide a little bit of clarity to this discussion, with particular focus on the actual application extension, I'll just point out that the purpose of the application, as Andy is aware, because we've met with your staff in order to discuss this, as well as have a better understanding of the commission's position, is to fully comply with the conditions of your approval. Of course, that approval was back in November 2023, not post July 2025, which of course is when that road regulation was amended this year. So our goal has been to comply with your approval from roughly 2 years ago. And that approval will expire in mid-November after your November hearing. And so in order to be compliant, we need a short extension because we are over 70% completion at this point. And we believe that there is a very high likelihood that will be completed by our November deadline, but that will be just by virtue of how the calendar works out after your November meeting, which is why we have requested the application, the extension. In order to better understand the issues addressed or summarized in Andy's report, that's one of the reasons why we have the actual experts about the project with us, so that any questions you have, you can direct to individuals who are boots on the ground, if you will, and involved in the day-to-day maintenance project. But I will say that the issues that we have addressed that are unique to this project and unique to the conditions of your approval of this project have resulted in delays, but they have also been met with diligent resolution and diligent addressing by these individuals and their staff of every problem, every work order that has been, every stop work order, every rain event that's led to some problem with drainage, every, the recent contractor's drainage from a detention pond. We are very committed to working with the city, with your staff, or with the commission, the city and the staff, in order to fully comply with those November 2023 conditions and your approval. The problem, of course, for us arises with this retroactive application of your road regulations to our November 2023 plat approval. We have laid the groundwork for our roads, but because we can't, without your final approval, lay those roads, pave those roads, install our curbs and gutters, we have issues like what you've seen in these pictures, and like what you've heard from your constituents or your community members and neighbors, because we don't have those roads in place and curbs and gutters and system in place without the final approval. We will address and are addressing all of the issues in Andy's report or his recommendation, as we have done throughout this entire project, which is why we are already over our 70% completion mark and do believe will be at an 80% completion by our deadline to do so by the time that this preliminary approval expires. All that being said, I'll mention also that according to my understanding, as Commissioner Harris mentioned, the denial of this extension must be on some valid legal basis. And that's another reason I'm here, because of course, as you can probably already tell from my attempt at describing this project, I am not there doing this work. I am not involved with Jenny and Andy. I am not involved in the complex issues that a construction project deals with on a day-to-day basis. My expertise, if you will, I don't know that I would go that far, but my focus has been on the valid legal basis for approval or denial. And today's presentation by Andy is the first time I or any of us have seen these option 1, option 2 descriptions and the conditions in option 2, which seem reasonable, which I think that we could most likely comply with. I mean, I saw them briefly the 2 times they were up on the screen, but preliminarily, at first glance, they seem reasonable. But I do know that in terms of your preliminary approval in November 2023 and any retroactive application of a July 2025 regulation amendment, we would not be able to start over in terms of dredging, digging out, replacing what we've already laid without considerable devotion of resources, both time, money, equipment, personnel, and materials. And in that way would be unduly prejudiced by the application, the retroactive application of that amendment. All of that aside, if you have any questions about this project, the timing of it, the effort to comply with all of your conditions of approval, as well as your staff's concerns, about which we met very recently, these individuals are more than qualified to address any questions that you may have, as am I on non-project related issues.
Okay, you had mentioned, I mean, you inferred that some of the like pumping out the water from the retention pond and
I did hear it.
things were because of the city not letting you pave yet and put up the
I
curbs
didn't
and
mean to
gutters?
imply that if that's what I did imply. What I meant was because we don't have our roads laid,
Right,
we are not able to direct control runoff. If we can get our gutters, drains, roads put in place, we can better control runoff. That's what I meant to.
right. I just understood that it was that the city was causing that delay.
No, sir,
From what you
I
said.
apologize. I did not intend to imply that. What I meant was, we would like to address these concerns related to runoff, related to drainage, related to Brights Creek by putting in the drainage, putting in the curbs, gutters, roads that can help direct the outflow, the runoff.
Well, that needs to happen.
Yes. Still going into Brights Creek.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question along those lines, because that's the way I interpreted your comment too, was that
That's my error.
because we won't let the road go in, because every new development, every developer is required to manage their water until their roads get paved, and so that's the BMP process, that a lot of the problems that we're addressing tonight are related to those issues. And so, I mean, we've been out there a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess, working. So that's the responsibility of the developer to manage their water. And I don't believe, and Jenny or Andy, sorry. I was still looking at Jenny, trying to figure out what your name was. Sorry, Andy.
Thank
I've only worked with this guy 25 years. So, but the stop work orders, to my understanding, have never included the proper management of water and stormwater management related items. So,
I understand.
okay.
I think that, what these folks would tell you is that when we've received a stop work order, when anything has happened, along the lines of this water runoff, we have responded, we've paid attention to it, we have addressed it, we have met with the staff and heard the complaint, made every effort to further mitigate where possible and manage through best management practices, these types of issues. And the installation of the gutters and curbs and roads would go further toward managing these issues.
That is true, and I think we would like to see those in when the preparation work is installed correctly. We would love to see that next step done. But, I mean, while you talk about your response, you do understand and recognize we've had a lot of issues here. And, I mean, four stop work orders and 3 violations and intentional pumping of the pond and the creek. Those are, I mean, there comes a point where, I mean, it's not our staff's job to be out there every day and to manage all that.
I agree.
And so our goal here, my goal here is that we do what we need to do together to get all this right before we move forward with anything else.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we are definitely committed to doing that. And that's why we meet with your staff and look at the ADM issues and the issues. We have been very committed to the material construction process, which is why we've gotten this far, which is why we are in excess of 70% completion. And we will continue to be so committed and responsive to all the concerns that have been raised in the stop work orders in order to have those reviewed and lifted as they have been to date.
I'll just make one more comment, then I have a couple of questions for Jenny when we circle back around to that point. But, I mean, to me, what we don't want is a timeline rush job to get to the next step to validate a permit, because then we're just creating more of these situations where it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for the community adjoining you, and it won't work for the homeowners that will eventually move into your neighborhood. So I don't think a rushing to November is a right solution for anybody.
And I don't actually think that that is the circumstance we're dealing with. I mean, with all due respect to Andy's description of what would occur, what would need to occur, I think that the problem with his description is that it retroactively applies the July 2025 road amendment. And these folks would be able to tell you more accurately than I, but I don't think there needs to be a rush in the completion of the job between now and November in order to comply with the regulations that we submitted the plat under in November of 2023, or that were approved at that point in time. So I do hear that concern and understand that any kind of rush would be problematic and certainly not ideal due to the consequences of doing a rush job. But I don't think, again, and maybe Jacob is the best person to address this, but I don't think that there needs to be a rush of any particular aspect of this project, because we are already so far along, in excess of 70% completion. And my understanding is that we would absolutely be at 80% completion by mid-November, yet that deadline is after the November meeting. And that was really the impetus behind the application for extension, is this, there's like a 4-day period, is my understanding, between our deadline and your meeting. Your meeting occurs first. And so the final approval would be actually before our deadline. And so that's what we were hoping to address with the application for this extension. So yes, I agree with you. If we were subject to the July 2025 road amendment, and we would need to tear out and redo preparatory road work, that's a whole nother ball of wax and a problem that I don't think that we would be dealing with if we are subject to the November 2023 regulations, under which our application for preliminary approval was approved.
One of the, and I know you haven't really had a chance to review the options that Andy just passed out to us, but one of the conditions, actually, let me keep this one for just a second for the question, but
Andy, do you have a copy of those conditions?
you can have mine back in just a second, but my question is, and I'm a little bit new to this process, so forgive me, but I'm hearing a story of a lot of missed marks related to this construction. And as Philip mentioned, it's not really the staff's responsibility to be out there daily to manage and monitor your subcontractors and contractors that are doing this work. So my question, I guess, is one of these items is to remove the unapproved spoil area located on lot 71 through 74, and some of these other options. If we were to move toward this as a recommendation or as an action, how quickly can some of these items be accomplished? It seems like there is a management issue that is occurring out there, and but besides the pumping of the discharge into the creek and whatever ADEM's going to get involved with that, what's an assurance to this board and to the city that these items are going to be taken at a higher mark or at a higher interest to make sure that this gets done immediately? You've heard from the people that are in this room how upset and how difficult, and it's absolutely happening. And so our role up here is to try to make sure that we don't have something worse happen, but to make sure that it gets better for the developer and for the community. But we need some assurance as to these items that will be addressed right away and with the right level of certainty to make sure that it happens.
Yes, sir. Jacob, are you able to speak to a timeline related to those conditions? If you wouldn't mind coming up here so that
Can you
everyone.
pop
can
the
hear
conditions
you
back
better?
up on the screen for everybody to see? Or Terrence?
Terrence, can you put the
Oh.
conditions back up there, please, sir?
And I know you're just seeing this, and I'm just trying to get a feel for the relationship between the developers, the on-site contractor, and the, you know, and the neighbors, right? Exactly.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the issues that have arose over the past couple of weeks, we've been working with the contractor as quickly as we can to address them. You know, not just as quickly as possible, but as effectively as possible. Some of these conditions on here, you know, speaking to schedule, you know, if we're allowed to continue with our current approved construction plans, we're looking at 8 to 10 weeks for completion of this project. That's punching out, that's, you know, working with the city for walkthroughs. You know, if we're speaking more towards the spoiled areas, I mean, that's something that we can have addressed almost immediately. So, you know, if there's any other items on here that y'all have specific questions about, I'm happy to answer those. But, I mean, we're not far here from wrapping this thing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Kathy Barnett, and I'm with Dewberry, and I coordinate the planning and environmental departments for Dewberry for this project. And so I just want to kind of give a little bit of context to some of these problems because they fall under my purview. We had a meeting with the contractor. We do regular inspections, and when there's a problem, we file with ADEM a non-compliance notification. So that goes to ADEM. It says, we've had an issue, we've had an upset, here's how we're going to correct it, and we put the steps together for how that's going to be done. So that is being done already. That's what's happening. We met with Grant Nichols. I was not receiving Brady's inspection reports, and I realized he was doing them, and I was not getting a copy of them. So we were sending them out, but we were missing a level of communication that the city of Gulf Shores had started with. So as soon as that 731 stop order came through and I was made aware of it, I reached out to Brady and said, hey, I need to be involved. We provided an enhanced BMP that identified including the stockpile as one of the items that needs to be addressed and removed and taken care of, including some sod for the ponds, a number of items. But because of the stop work order from getting the slopes for the detention ponds to where they need to be, we can't put the sod down. So
You understand why there was a stop work order?
yes, sir. Oh, I'm not debating the stop work order, and again, there was a discharge to Brights Creek, so I fully understand there was a discharge at Joel's Lane. So I'm not debating the stop work order and the effectiveness of the city of Gulf Shores in the slightest. What I'm saying is I was missing the piece from Gulf Shores. So we worked with the contractor, we worked with the developer, tightened up our communication. You know, we all have better ways to do things and learn where there can be mistakes made and how we can improve. So we're at a point now where we are at 70%. The roads need to go ahead and get asphalt down, which is why we're asking for the extension. We submitted the application, since I wear the planning hat, back in June, before the road thing was even an issue, so we didn't know this was going to be an issue. We always think if we're going to get close, and like we said, this November deadline is going to be tight. We always do submit to make sure that we are compliant. So the road wasn't even an issue when we submitted, so we had no idea this was even going to come up. So we understand that there's some problems. We've talked to the inspector to beef up our communication. We're on the site more often to make sure that the contractor is doing what they need to do. We've met with the contractor in our office from a design standpoint. Sharice went ahead and was further proactive and put in some additional drainage, which Andy was referring to. Wasn't a design flaw. It was just, can we do something more to address some of these problems? So we're trying to be proactive and responsive. We respect and understand the frustration from the neighborhood. Stopping the problem and redesigning and starting again isn't going to solve this problem from an environmental perspective. And I hear what the neighbors are saying, that might be some code changes that y'all want to look at that staff might address down the road. I don't think the intent when we're at a 70% plus design is to come into compliance and say no. I understand staff's reason for that recommendation, but it's going to be hard to have everybody start redesigning if they're near the end because of a rule change. So we're here. We're going to get on these recommendations. You know, we don't need a year. I don't know the magic numbers. The 68B folks can tell you that, but we're responsive. We're talking with ADEM. We're looking to address those concerns. We're making sure that we've enhanced the BMPs. We've created an enhanced BMP that's gone to the city. It is a priority.
When you report to ADEM, is the city copied or notified?
It's a portal, so the city's not privy to the portal. All of it's the non-point source discharge elimination NPDES permit. It's a portal system,
Right.
so you submit it online.
I was just curious if you'd also
We
communicate that.
don't, but I would be happy to do that moving forward. We've have had some communities do that before. I didn't know Brady. I didn't know he served a role as an inspector, and so now we have that dialogue. I've encouraged him, if he had any concerns, to reach out to me. I just didn't know he was serving in that capacity. So I accept responsibility for not knowing that. I have opened up the communication for that. I know he wears both the C&I hat and the erosion control hat. And so and then like I said, we've worked with the contractor to understand that when we send a report, it has to be done immediately.
So has Saturday's discharge incident been filed with ADEM? Is that what I understand?
There's not been a filing on this past Saturday.
Are you going to do that?
Why not? Why has there not been one?
I'm sorry, I thought you said it had been filed. I was just going to scratch that off my list if it had been.
Some of those stop work orders. So,
So nothing's been notified of the discharge.
not today.
Has our staff been given an opportunity to review your BMP upgrades? Do you have a comment on their enhanced best management practices plan?
So after their end of July stop work order, they submitted a revised BMP plan, and we did review that. That's when we released their stop work order and let them go back to work at the beginning of August.
Have they implemented the?
Yes, they have. That was one of the conditions. Actually, when they're under a stop work order, they can still maintain all of those BMPs and they can stabilize the site. So if that's seeding or whatever would need to be to help stabilize the site, they can do all of that under their stop work order. And we've been in very close communication with them during those times. And then we approved the new plan before we released the stop work order.
Some of the items, for example, are replacing, there's an area that looks like it's vegetated, but it's not properly. So we've said replace that with stop. There are things that are what need to happen. But kind of not knowing where the status of this project is and if they're gonna have to tear things up, that's sort of been partly the delay as far as that.
Can you tell me the existing elevation of the road base, where it sits today, is in the process of
That's not,
completion?
well, that will go to engineering, so that is not mine, Mr. No.
Okay.
But I can, and I do want to answer just to the Gopher tortoises, and you can call Erica Shelton-Nix from the state of Alabama and ask about the Gopher tortoise relocation, because I personally coordinated that Gopher tortoise relocation. They went to Geneva State Park. I have receipts for the pickup, the purchase of silt fence, so I understand that there was some frustration. Gopher tortoises actually make more than one burrow per tortoise. They tend to have a starter burrow, and then they actually have their main burrow and sometimes even a vacation home. So the burrows and the tortoises, we did most certainly when we got on there, we relocated those tortoises, and they are at Geneva State Park, and they were pinned separately to make sure that they cause no disease to any other tortoise. Legal spot. So.
Okay, thank you.
Going with 68 Ventures. I think much the planning commission members probably know this, but just thought it was worth addressing. We are a Baldwin County-based company. We do greatly care about the job that we do. I think we certainly acknowledge that there have been some items that weren't done to best practices in this project. We acknowledge that and certainly understand that and strive to do better. But most of our company are Baldwin County residents. We live in the community. We send our children to Baldwin County schools. And so I just, I think you guys know that, but want to point that out while we acknowledge some of the deficiencies of this project. If I'm allowed to ask Ms. Jenny a question, on option 2, are there any changes other than the concrete PSI?
In staff's recommendation number 2, we did not address subgrade or asphalt at all. The only thing we added was the concrete.
Got it. Okay.
And actually in option number 2, I think it's 5, I don't have it in front of me, yeah. 2.5, all of those inspection requirements are in our subdivision regulations. We might have added a little additional language about notifying the inspector prior to them, but those are inspections that are required as stop points throughout. And usually the engineer does all of those inspections, but this just adds an extra layer of involving the city in those as well. So those are not new requirements. Those are existing enhanced requirements.
Enhanced.
Yeah, so I think, even Aventura was discussed or brought up, I think we submitted plans to the city in accordance with the regulations at the time. When that project was completed, all of the testing were done to ensure that I was in compliance with the plans. So I certainly understand the city's stance to kind of increase the standards of road construction. I'm always in favor of enhancing the quality of development, whether that be materials and roadways, or I think a few years back, you guys also implemented some regulations that increased the aesthetics of the home construction, which I'm a big fan of as well. So certainly take no issue with that. We just kind of want to be held to the standard that was in place when we began the project. I'm not sure it's material, but do want to point out that as a part of our preliminary plat approval, one of our conditions to receive a land disturbance permit was to receive a turnout permit from Baldwin County. We expeditiously tried to receive that permit. We submitted, we closed on the purchase of the property in February, so a slight delay there, but just kind of one of the realities of real estate. We submitted for a permit to Baldwin County in February. In April, we received a letter from Baldwin County on the letterhead saying our permit had been issued. And trying to receive the actual piece of paper, Baldwin County went back and said, hey, that guy who told you had your permit, he's no longer here. He wasn't very great at his job, so we don't really trust what he did. We want to start at 0. And we did not receive that permit until August. We applied for it in February. We have record of that, if it's helpful to see. So, that primary delay from November, when the preliminary plat was approved, to receiving our turnout permit in August, we did try to receive that permit as quickly as we could, and I believe we did receive our land disturbance permit in September, which is a pretty typical timeline there. I guess I will comment that I believe option 2, we feel that those conditions in light of everything are reasonable on staff's part, and we would be comfortable and amenable to agreeing to those conditions should the commission kind of deem that for this.
Could you give me your name again? I didn't get it, sir.
Yes, Drew Dolan, 68 Ventures.
Drew, last name?
Dolan, D-O-L-A-N.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's obvious that it needs to be stabilized, and the way to stabilize this is to complete the subdivision where we are now.
That's correct.
And if these options were added, requirements were added, and increased communication, improved communication with everybody, what is the timeline in a reasonable timeline?
Yeah, I think to get to substantial completion, probably about 10 weeks. Now there's, little punch out stuff. Obviously, we need to be complete with the project before we submit And from the submittal deadline before it comes back in front of y'all is about 45 days. So I think just from a construction timeline to be substantially complete, pending weather, which we've had good weather, 45 days before that was pretty dicey.
Build that in.
Yes, so I think 10 weeks is a pretty reasonable time period. But again, that's just construction completion. I think staff may tell you that the timeline we actually need on an extension would take us until we're actually back in front of you guys for final plat approval. I'm not certain on that, but I believe that's the case.
So you're saying 10 weeks from today, or as soon as you're able to start work again?
For construction completion, and then it just kind of depends on how y'all's submittal timeline falls.
Andy, is the timeline, when is it up?
So
There's a couple triggers, right?
2 years is up November 14th, 2025. The planning commission meeting in November is November 18th.
And that's for final plat.
But we would have to,
So they, yeah, and
Right.
you usually submit 6 weeks out prior to,
I'm just trying to do
our
the
application
sequential
submittal process is, submittal day is 6 weeks prior to a planning commission meeting, approximately.
So something like a January planning commission meeting.
I think that's correct.
I don't think I would have, I think we all agree that continuing is a good approach to fix the problem. And in a normal situation, I don't think we would be even concerned with granting an extension without all the problems that have been unearthed during this process. And I know it was a delay for you to start, which then made your time period shorter, but we're hearing an awful lot of issues related to the actual construction and some of those stop work orders and other things, which that's where I'm really having a hard time is making sure that once you get back to work, that you get this shored up and that you do what you can do to not prevent the neighbors from losing their quality of life any worse than it already is.
Understood.
And if an extension is approved, I would suggest that you assign someone to be able to be someone that can communicate with the neighbors and be called when if they see a problem,
I think we can.
instead of having to chase somebody down.
Drew, are you the project manager? Okay. I'm just back to my question about the elevation of the road. Is there anybody here that can help me with that, understand that? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sheree Brandon with Dewberry. I'm the project manager on this one. The elevation, the subgrade has already been processed. Most of the roadway, the subgrade was suitable, it just had to be processed. There were some small sections that needed to be undercut and backfilled with suitable material. I do have subbase reports. I got them right before the meeting, so I can send those to Jeannie and Andy tomorrow morning. The base has already been installed. We did lose some of it with some of the rain events, but it is generally 2 grade, ready for curb and asphalt.
And as she mentioned, we haven't seen any test reports on the subgrade or the subbase.
Yeah, so, I think that's vital that we have a chance to review that and understand all the testing to this point before we remove any stop work order on that. But, so we've got the base in. This is my personal opinion, folks, about our new road design. We've been building roads to our old design for 40 years. And there are roads that have held up for a very long time with that design. And then there are some that haven't. And to me, it's not necessarily the design as much as it is the installation of the material and the way things are done. And if we're tested and so the new design standards that we adopted for the roads by taking out more of the existing dirt and the clay base and putting in more gravel and more top coat takes away some of that risk of maybe the compaction's not right everywhere. Maybe if there's a stormwater break, we've got filtration through rock and sand and not pulling the soil down that creates sinkholes. So the new design kind of takes out some of the risk of these roads not holding up long term. But So my question is, we've got the base in and I guess we're clipped and ready for curbing. What can we do from where you are today to where our new standards are that can improve from the old plan to the new plan without tearing out all your base? Is there some intermediate solution there that can improve the top coat above the base that's in now?
We've got the base down, as I said, we'll provide the reports, the test reports from that, but other than coming back and tearing out the sand clay base that's already in and replacing it with fresh aggregate, I don't know another option.
Jenny, do you have any comment on that?
So I have a question about the test reports, and I know you might not have all these, you might not have this answer tonight, but was the subgrade tested before the sub base was put in? Because we should have test results for the subgrade and the sub base. And when we spoke with GeoCon earlier this morning, they told us they hadn't done any testing out there aside from the waterline testing that you sent over a couple days ago.
Okay.
I don't know.
GeoCon sent me
Okay.
sub-base test report.
Okay, I just haven't, we haven't seen anything, so
Okay.
that's our concern.
You're right. And as I said, I will forward this to you.
Sure. So without seeing those reports, it's hard for me to say whether it's compacted or what it's at. I don't know how I can make a recommendation.
And I don't know how I personally can vote either way, because I think it's our job to make sure that this is all put in to the standard. I know we have a design, but we also have an installation standard, which will result in, is this a 5-year road or a 20-year road? And we know from history, we can get long life out of these old designs if we get it right.
Option 2, as suggested by staff, does that not ensure that we step through all of that properly to ensure that those testings meet the standards?
But it sounds like you're past at least half of those steps in option 5 already without having any of that. Yeah.
But again, I just got him right before the meeting and
Yeah, I guess.
certified him first thing in the morning. So you will have the report. I mean, I think we can't move past that point until you tell us.
Yeah, I guess that's what, well, I think we're not.
But you had adequate testing, she just hadn't seen it.
I think GeoCon saying we've got
For the
the
whole.
testing, so we understand we wouldn't be able to move past our current state until we've provided testing, and Ms. Jenny has confirmed that it is in compliance with the regulations. And that would continue on throughout the rest of the build as outlined in option 2. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not saying that with complete confidence, that's just as I understood.
Well, option 2 for me addresses a lot of these concerns so that we get them right moving forward. The only thing it doesn't address for me yet is the street. And subject to review of the test results and us getting our Jenny and her staff getting a comfort of where we are to date. I'm not prepared to make a decision on the road yet. Do we need to back up any? Is there a way to move forward and mitigate any of those risks? But I think that's all going to come down to review a report and getting comfortable with where we are. So, but other than that, I think this is the solution to getting everything else done right. And I mean, we can't walk away from this development. We can't just stop and let it sit there. We've got to finish it. The key here is to get it finished right. And
Commissioner, I think the only way to be able to review those reports would be to table this for a month so that we have time to work with the engineers, get them a little further along on their site and know where we're at a month from now.
so I don't disagree with that. And so talk through what happens with the stop work order if we delay this decision, because they need to do what they can do to prevent any other problems in stormwater washout and do all that. I just don't think moving forward with the road and signing off on the water line till we get all those tests back for the water line, that we know those two things are right. Those are the only two things that really are not addressed in here that I think are important moving forward, so. You talking about this?
So it's my understanding that the stop work order still allows them to make the necessary repairs to the best management practices to make sure that they don't continue to push that water on the neighbors.
I guess what I think that also was a one-off issue that wasn't caused by site conditions, it was caused by kind of an action
Bad
that
mistake.
wasn't in best
Yeah.
practices, so if we did nothing, I don't think anything else bad would happen. I guess, Commissioner Harris, and this may be for you, does D not still kind of govern that we can't just go and start doing curb tomorrow because we haven't met B yet, but B covers us, so as soon as we provide those, the reports from Geocon to Jenny, if those meet the standards, we check that box. If they don't, we're going back and reworking the subgrade until it meets the standard. I guess that's the only thing I don't think I'm following is that.
Yeah,
It seems like it's a comprehensive, suggestion on staff part. We just haven't yet met those. It still kind of comprehensively governs where we are to get to 100% complete. We have to comply with all of them still.
I think the city's concern with that is that when you have a road section, you have sub-base, then you have subgrade, then you have asphalt, basically. So the sub-base number D on this is in and complete, and B, the subgrade is in and complete above it. But we never got any test results on the sub-base that's underneath the subgrade.
That's what I'm gonna be sending you tomorrow.
And we were not on site to inspect any of that. We asked for test results over the water line. I know Gulf Shores Utilities worked on getting water line testing. Gulf Shores Utilities was not present for any of the water line inspection to my knowledge. I'm sure they could speak to that more than I could. And the test results they received were retroactive test results where Geocon dug down and pulled dirt out because they did not test in layers and lifts as they backfilled above that water line. So that's some of my concern as it relates to the roadway. I know they're a little bit separate issues, and I feel like the devil's in the details on this. It's very difficult. And without those test results, we don't know when they tested or where they tested. And hopefully some of that information is going to be forthcoming, but I can't tell you that there is a solid subgrade out there today.
I mean, so to me, if we had all that testing along the way and we knew the sub-base and the grade was in properly and we were all comfortable with that, making you tear all that out to change to the new code wouldn't be on my priority list. We've built roads like that. If we build them right, they hold up. But I think we've got to get to that point, because if we approve this, then we've approved your extension with conditions. Jenny and her staff have some oversight into this, but not on the extension, and not going back to just tear the road out and let's put in the new road. Then we know we've got a good road. But back to my last question, I'm going to put you back on the spot. Is there anything in the process from where we are today to the top coat that can help mitigate any of these potential issues in a change of the design of the asphalt layers?
So assuming that the subgrade reports and the sub-base reports all are passing from the geotech, a thicker layer of asphalt is in our new specs call for 2 layers of asphalt. The old specs only had 1. So either 1 thicker or 2 smaller layers of asphalt would give the road a little more structural integrity.
Since the action we're being asked to take today is the extension, and it doesn't officially expire until November, we do have time to table this, get the testing reviewed and looked at, and then come back to this body for action in September. And the stop work orders are lifted when the appropriate testing is done and all the elements that are in place are ready to go for them to continue with their process as if they're not needing an extension.
Can I make a suggestion, potentially?
Sure.
If Miss Jenny's not happy with the Geocon reports that Sharice is gonna forward, that she just received today, and there were some dates, could we not consent, assuming that it's okay with Drew, to that additional layer of asphalt so that we could move forward? The challenge with us asking us to table this for 30 days is we still don't have a resolution for getting the curb and gutter and the road down. And that really will help with our stormwater management. So we really want to get paved and move forward because we're going to get our curb and gutter and our drainage system fully installed, which is going to put the water in a better place of where it's supposed to go with those ponds. So
I might be confused, but what does that have to do with needing an extension for your
because if we're
plat?
arguing over the design of what the road standard is, and you're not giving us a preliminary plat extension because we don't know if we're gonna have to comply with a new road standard, we can't really pave because otherwise we'd have to dig the whole thing up. We don't know what your rule is. And so we're kind of at this, you've gotta tell us what our rule's gonna be. We're far enough along, we believe we can send a report to comply. We can give the layer of asphalt if staff isn't satisfied with that suitable material, assuming Drew's not telling me to shut up, so that we can move forward, because it really is best to get paved and get that water as designed. So that's the problem with asking us to table is we don't know what the playing book is, and then we've gone another month without having it paved, without being able to divert that water properly. And that's kind of why we're asking.
Understood.
I
Jenny,
get it. I understand.
if you get those test results and you're not happy with how they were tested or what was tested, is it possible to go reproduce some more testing quickly?
Yes, I believe it is. I believe that if we're not happy with the number of tests or the depth of the tests
Location.
or the location of the tests, we can work with the developer, the contractor, and the geotech engineer to go out, and it might require digging down in certain specific areas and getting some additional tests.
Could you agree to that? If those test results weren't adequate or sufficient?
If I'm understanding correctly and recapping correctly, we're basically agreeing to option 2. If Jenny wants to see additional tests, we can certainly go do that. Is that correct?
And that additional layer you're
And
talking about?
if the subgrade does not meet the specs, then we will go to a thicker asphalt or 2 lifts of asphalt.
If the subgrade does not meet the tests, then I think we need to have more conversations. I'm assuming that the subgrade meets the tests. And that's an assumption. Sharice
Let's
is
all hope
nodding
they meet.
positively, and maybe she's had a chance to look at them.
Subgrade being a test, that's,
But-
you know, specs, it's an objective.
Right, the sub base and the subgrade, assuming that all those test reports come back from Geocon and they're passing and it's solid, and then we can get out there and include some of these other criteria and proof rolling and that sort of thing before we put asphalt down.
I guess, yeah, I guess.
Then I think I'd be fine with a thicker layer of asphalt. If the test results are not passing, it's gonna have to come out anyway, then I think I wanna talk about base. That's not a great answer. It's the best answer I have.
Yeah, it's sort of option 2 plus thicker asphalt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it seems to me like if the city has very little risk in approving option 2 because we've got to meet specs for subgrade. If we don't, we're in a world of hurt because you guys got to stick because unless someone says otherwise, we're having to tear the road and go back. So that it doesn't seem like the city's taking on any risk because it's an objective test. Sounds like from the engineers, if we don't have sufficient tests, they can be done by a geotechnical engineer. And it's just an objective, do we meet the requirements or not?
Does it help any if I say that if you wanted to table this for a month, they have current standards, which have the current geotech tests and the asphalt, and assuming they pass all those and they put down some asphalt, adding an extra inch of asphalt on top of that at the end of the day, if something comes up and you guys want to go that route, could be done in a month. You tell me if that's reasonable. But it feels like if all of their test results are passing, there's no reason they can't put asphalt down per their approved plans.
Currently, without an extension.
They might need an extension in
No,
time.
they'll need an extension, but I'm not talking, but
Not this
instead of a, instead of a,
Instead of a denial and a reapply and a whole process, they might be able to complete the work on their plans
or a deferral to next
or defer to the next meeting.
action tonight.
But I really don't want them to put anything down that they're gonna have to rip up. So, I think we can all agree that ripping up asphalt is nobody is in favor of that. So whatever we approve tonight needs to allow them to put some asphalt down. So if that's all their geotech test reports pass, then they can pave per their current plan and at least get, their current plan is a thinner layer of asphalt than our new spec requires. So if you allow them to put that layer down and then come back in the next round and say, you know, we want a thicker layer of asphalt, that's something that could be discussed in a month without affecting the current timeline of the project, I believe, but I also want y'all to weigh in on that.
But don't they really need to know that to set curb heights and do the rest of that work? I mean, is that really a decision we need to commit to one way or another?
Yeah.
See, I'm okay with the extension because it gives everybody time to slow it down and get it right and fix the things that we had to fix. What I'm not okay with at this point is giving up the city's position to require the new road standard if we can't get this one where it needs to be. That's the only part. I'm fine with the time. The time helps everybody. Everybody in this room gets help with more time. I just don't like giving up the right to requiring the road. If for some reason we can't get this road tested and approved like we.
There are roads in the city that are built under the old standards that have been lasted for 40 years, so, you know.
I also said there's some that hadn't listed, but 5, I'm trying not to go there on you. So let's,
Yeah, well, I mean, they've
I-
been 20 years contract.
I'm,
But I guess there's also some heightened requirements in there with regard to, city staff always having to provide public notice and kind of step through sort of construction process by construction process with 24-hour notice and making sure we're going, you know, core samples every 50 feet before we kind of move on to the next step and next step. So, I mean, if we go and subgrade doesn't test or base doesn't test, I mean, we're stuck right there before moving on the curve, before we're talking about pouring asphalt.
so Jenny, with these conditions that are here, I mean, you agree that it gives you and your department the authority to, the final authority on them moving forward with asphalt based on the you being satisfied with test results?
Terrence, can you put those criteria back up?
Well, and if that's accurate, I mean, if ultimately that you can't move forward till we're satisfied they're right, then there's the protection that we're getting the road the right way. And if we go ahead and commit the 1 extra inch of asphalt, then we get that
Safety.
mitigation of the risk, because we haven't had the testing as we went along. I mean, we're getting the testing late. That's my whole issue here. Not questioning the integrity of who's doing the test, but we don't have all that, and we should have all that. So I'm looking for some, if we need a decision today, other than that, I'm really not interested in voting on the road extension part today because we're not there.
So.
If we get you authority and we get the 1 inch, and then I think because tearing all that out is not a good plan. I'm telling nobody, it's not a good plan for anybody. When you do that, the risk of other things going wrong increases dramatically. So the best thing is, how do we move forward and get a road that the new homeowners get a good life out of the road, and the city doesn't inherit an expense before we should, and the neighbors don't have runoff problems. So
on these recommendations, number 5, A actually through E on the next page, have all been completed. There's nothing we can inspect on that because they're telling us it's already in the ground. So we can get tests back from Geocon, from the engineer, and get some engineering certification. But A through E is already down, and we weren't notified, we weren't on site, we haven't been able to see any of that until you get at least halfway through E.
Can you do some random spot testing to get comfortable with that?
We can try. I mean, we don't have another choice.
We'll do that.
And especially without knowing what has been tested out there, that, yeah.
Obviously, nobody had a duck from the roads and it started.
So if you're not happy with the tests that come in, you can do further tests.
Yes.
If we don't meet the final test too, you don't approve the final plat. So you still have that hook, and we have a whole nother conundrum, which means we're gonna have to dig it up and comply anyway. So truthfully, if we can't provide those reports for you, we're gonna have to dig it up and build a new road regardless, because we're not gonna meet your conditions at final plat approval once we get to that point. So I really do believe the city has you have the stick, because if we're not giving you the proper documentation, you're not gonna let us get to final plat. And that, whether that's us having to dig up the road and building it to a new standard, or retesting and refilling and doing it all. So I believe you really do have the stick here for what you need.
Well, do we have any motions?
Public hearing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right. We ready to close the public hearing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got more. This is, what I don't want to do is pass the buck to our city engineer either. And so, it's not our job to take that role and that responsibility. So,
I'm not sure why we can't let the results and the engineer people look and talk and go on site and do some inspections and see what's happening there and defer the extension, which doesn't actually expire until November. Why we can't push this off to give some more time, even if it's not a full month to next meeting, even if we do a special call meeting or something, if there needs to be something done in between now and the September 20th something meeting.
I don't disagree at all. I think,
Checkerboards everywhere. Right through our neighborhood, it looks disgusting.
Yeah,
Sidewalk, different
I've seen
color,
it.
asphalt, different
yeah,
color. So that's all that's gonna happen down the road.
well, we spent a lot of time on this tonight because we're not willing to end up there. And so, well, yeah, so Aventure's total different issue than what we have tonight, but since it's been brought up 2 or 3 times, city's not accepted those roads yet because of that, because of those issues, and that conversation's happening every day to get those roads to a satisfactory point to where the city will take them. So we acknowledge that, and that's kind of why we're having this lengthy discussion on making sure we get this all gets done right in light of the problems we've had.
As far as the,
Philip, just to add to that, I live in Aventura, so we're aware, and so does Jenny. So it's not gone forgotten.
Yeah, but you understand, because you do live
I
there.
do.
You just don't want another neighborhood, another neighboring country to go where.
I think part of the reason that considering option 2 is an option is you've got residents on George and is it Booney? Booney Lane. If we do deny it, then it's going to be a longer period of time that they're having to deal with the runoff.
It's a great solution for a month.
Oh, I'm,
Because they use Jimmy, all those result sheets to make appropriate decisions to move forward.
Sure.
It's not harming, it's only helping to get all of the.
Sure.
All right, we're going to close the public hearing now to see if we can get a motion.
Nothing's stopping them from fixing these problems. And that's what seems to be, we want to pass, is what I'm hearing. We want to pass, but we don't want, they can fix the problems. They can come back next month and say, we fixed all these problems. And say, look, that's it. So
Thank you, Mickey.
I don't know what this thing is that they're so concerned about. I see what's going on out there, and I can tell you, I'm concerned. And it's a lot more than just some dates issues here. I mean, it isn't being professionally wrong, I can just tell you that.
Well, addressing the current situations of stormwater runoff are part of the cease and desist on everything else. They are required to keep working on those, and that's a requirement. Regardless of this vote tonight, whether it's extended or postponed, those requirements stay in place and don't change.
All right, public hearing's closed.
On that wall over we've been talking about, it covers all of it. The young men, the two young men like to sit in there and set the whole hooked up. Somebody above them, they set the shit, because it won't be cheap, but it's not.
Thank you.
You reminded me of one more question I had before you closed the full meeting for a vote related to that. Jenny, back on the back end where the drainage ditch is along Booney and all that vegetation's being cleared out there, is there a requirement to reinstall a vegetative buffer in there when that work's done?
Yes, there is, and the engineer can probably speak to the more specifics on that exact location on the plans of what's going to be installed, but it will need to be revegetated, and yeah, cleaned up.
That's the same name for that land.
And I know,
Well, it's something they won't do till they're done with the project though, sir, because until they get done with all the sodding and irrigation, they'll do that then. I just wanted to make sure, because I've been back there on that back and it is opened up. So I wanted to understand, if you have to take a buffer out to put a drainage ditch in, that's understandable, but we got to put it back.
Thank you.
and there was a
And it's in the plan.
there was a buffer on the plans. Seems like the northwest corner. It was a landscape buffer. I don't believe there was any fencing that was required at preliminary plat approval, and I think the landscape buffer, I think it was kind of the northwest corner where it abutted some of those residential neighborhoods, but it didn't go completely around the site. It's my recollection. I don't have those plans in front of me.
Okay, we closed again.
I won't say another word.
For the third time?
Any more, excuse me, sir.
Not tonight. Not tonight.
Any more discussion up here, guys?
You know what?
Anybody have a motion? Mickey?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Do it, or you want me to?
I don't care. If we're making the same one, it doesn't matter.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we table this until the next regular planning commission meeting.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
It's the fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, let me see. I think is it the next meeting will be September 23rd at 4 p.m. in this location.
And hopefully 68 Ventures, from at least where I'm sitting, I'm not opposed to giving the extension. I think the idea of giving the extension so that you can continue to do this good work and get the work good and make sure that it is a good project for you guys and for the community, I'm not opposed to that at all. I just feel like working a little bit more closely together, we can verify what's in there and what's going on. so that we'll know exactly what, if any, conditions have to be applied to your extension next month.
I agree with that. Folks, I think we'll all end up with a plan to work together to get this like it needs to be before we let it go forward. And I think you've heard this board and our staff and these folks right here commit to getting it right before we move forward.
All right, the next public hearing is item 5B, Kelly Pre-Zone and Annexation.
Yes, sir. This is ZA 2528, Kelly Pre-Zone and Annexation. I'll give him a minute to get out. All right, the applicant seeks to pre-zone and annex a piece of property located at 4199 County Road 6 to neighborhood business. The Code of Alabama allows municipalities to pre-zone and annex land that's not within their city limits. Follows the same process as a zoning, rezoning, requires public hearings before the Planning Commission and City Council. Here are the location maps. 4199 currently is located in Baldwin County. That's the reason they're wanting to annex and pre-zone the property. It's just a little bit north of the Shipwreck Kelly's. It's currently under construction. I think it used to be Happy Harbor. So it's very near north of the intersection of County Road 6 and Waterway West Boulevard near the bridge to Plash Island. Existing conditions is a vacant lot. It's not in the city of Gulf Shores. It's in an unzoned area of Baldwin County, which means basically the owner of the property could do pretty much anything he wants with it because it does not have any zoning. We did advertise this in accordance with the zoning ordinance. We did not receive any correspondence from the surrounding our property owners within 750 feet of the site. So the proposed zoning is neighborhood business. I think you guys know what neighborhood business is. It's typically a zoning district that provides kind of a buffer between more intense commercial zoning like general business and surrounding residential neighborhoods. That's kind of exactly what we got going on in this instance. The property directly to the south is currently under consideration. The R4 property there is currently under consideration by the City Council to rezone to general business. Planning Commission recommended approval. It was last month, I think. So that hadn't gone to the City Council yet. So, and then most of the remainder of the property south of this has also been rezoned to general business. The predominant use north of the property, a lot of it's unzoned Baldwin County, but most of it's single-family residential. Land use plan classifies this specific property as a medium-density residential, but it does abut a commercial activity center. Under the analysis, back in January, the Planning Commission recommended or amended the future land use plan to move that commercial activity center a little bit further to the south from where it used to be located, so that now the commercial activity center or the future land use plan is located right on the intersection of County Road 6 and Waterways West Boulevard. It used to be a little bit north of that. We thought, staff thought it would be better suited to put that right around the intersection because that's probably where the more intense uses are going to be in the future. You guys agreed with us, amended the future land use plan. Again, a lot of the property to the south has either been rezoned to general business or is currently under consideration to be rezoned. We believe rezoning this property to BN will serve as a transition between those future general business uses and the residential uses north of the property. Again, the BN zoning district is very restrictive. It's the most restrictive commercial zoning district. Commercial uses are limited to 5,000 square feet of gross floor area, or a CUP is required. As you know, a CUP requires processing through the Planning Commission and City Council. Operating hours are limited from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then the garages, repair yards, industrial type uses are not allowed in a BN zoning district. Again, we support the rezoning of this to BN with one condition. BN also allows multifamily uses, so since there's a single family use north of the property, we recommend approval of the rezoning, but with a condition that no multifamily uses are not allowed. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Andy, any buffer to the property to the north would be site plan dependent, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir. That's the other thing, that if this property is annexed in and zoned, our buffering regulations and our landscape ordinance will apply, but those typically come in at the time of site plan approval because it's based on the use of the property. So if they do a restaurant, there may be one type of buffer between the neighbor. If they do a different type of use, it could be a greater or lesser buffer, but that will apply.
And the property to the north, it is unzoned.
It is unzoned, and it's currently a single-family residential house.
Quick question, does the neighborhood business allow restaurants? Now, I didn't think it did unless we changed that.
It's only where it's.
I think it's CUP.
I think it's CUP. And I just say that our neighborhood business zoning is very restrictive in what it allows in uses, and restaurants may or may not fit in a good neighbor next to a restaurant, residence, but, so does the landowner of this parcel own the land back to the south? Is this part of the?
This is a different landowner than the landowner to the south.
Okay.
Yes, so then to answer your first question, standard and walk-up restaurants are only allowed by conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you. So what is the purpose of the request for annexation?
We don't have any conceptual plans or anything. I know that the landowner of the property to the south, he's the applicant in this, so I don't know if he's going to buy it in the
Contract
future.
subject to or something.
But we don't have any conceptual plans. I don't know that I've really talked to the applicant about any plans for this property. I know I have talked to him about plans for his property to the south of this, but not necessarily for this property.
Why did we defer this from last meeting? I don't recall.
It was deferred at the request of city staff because the application was not complete.
And the applicant for this action is the owner of the property to the south, but not the.
But they don't
owner.
own this property, correct?
So do we have information from the owner of the
Property owner
that
signed the application.
said that he is willing to let it be?
Yes,
annexed in?
yes. So typically, that's what we require, is a property owner has to sign the application. We require title policy proving that they are the property owner. So we did receive all that.
Okay, I guess it's time to open the public hearing. Anybody want to speak about this? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing.
Do we, okay.
Well,
No, that's fine. No, if there's no comments, no comments. I don't need to start any comments.
it only lasted an
It
hour,
lasted
right?
2 hours last time No, being unregulated, and the reason I was asking you, there's no limits to the use now in the county. I'm just wondering what the benefit to coming into the city is. So the county won't regulate use. They do regulate any subdivision requirements, not necessarily dividing lots, but if you have more than one use on the land. So there's some oversight.
I would like.
County, we would get a lot more oversight and really restrict the use. So just curious why the adjoining residential property owner wasn't here, but I see this as a benefit to that property owner as well.
He made a comment about parking.
He did.
at the last planning.
The homeowner
commission,
did?
The applicant
Applicant.
as a potential need.
Future
And
development.
the owner of the house to the north was present at the last.
He was here.
So
And
I
that-
guess if it becomes part of that other plan and they need parking there, they'll need that in the city limits for that.
Yeah,
And then we'll get oversight on proper buffering to the residents at the site plan.
and the other thing, this property has, I don't know, maybe 25% of it is wetlands. So if it is brought into the city, our wetland protection regulations apply, which don't allow the filling of wetlands and require a 30-foot buffer. I made the applicant aware of that requirement just to make sure he knew, that this is going to be regulated by the city, and tried to tell him all the regulations. He said, still want to annex and pre-zone, so,
I think the county has a similar buffer
do they?
nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah. I think. Anybody else? Does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept staff recommendation for the annexation of the pre-zoning of the property on County Road 6.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
Discussion?
Any discussion?
Does the BN protect us enough to not have to have any conditions for not having multifamily or not doing other things on that piece of property? We wouldn't, not that they might be able to fit it, but,
Well, the approval is not having multifamily.
okay, that is.
Yeah, the approval, the condition that we recommend is no multifamily allowed.
Good.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mel,
Motion
if I
carries.
excuse myself, do you still have everybody you need up here to get through the last item on 5? Excuse me, folks. See you later.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Okay, the next public hearing is item 5C, ZTA 25-04, remove Plash Island overlay zoning text amendment.
Yes, sir. So like you said, this was a look at the Plash Island overlay district. Staff was originally asked to review it and get our feedback on whether or not the Plash Island overlay needed to remain or be reviewed. I will say that after our analysis and review, our recommendation is actually just to leave it alone. Again, like I said, we were doing a review. And let me just read kind of the description of the Plash Island overlay, or at least the introduction. The following provisions shall apply in addition to those of the applicable base zoning district. Wherever a conflict exists between the provisions of the overlay and the applicable underlying zoning, the more restrictive shall govern. So in other words, if the overlay says, for instance, I'll show you on this table here, the overlay, for instance, says a building height of 15 stories, or actually, let me better example, a maximum gross density of 15 dwelling units per acre, but the BT3 zoning that exists in the overlay says 30 dwelling units per acre. The more restrictive would be the 15.
So the overlay would apply.
Correct, more restrictive. Similarly, in R1 zoning district that allows a single, family home dwelling unit, that would be the limiting factor there. So again, upon our closer analysis, we felt like the overlay is valuable. It keeps some limitation to the slightly more rural development pattern that we see out there. So let me back up. Let me go one forward. So staff recommendation is really no action at all. If that's the pleasure of the planning commission, we'll just effectively withdraw the application. The city was the applicant on that. With that said, first off, you'll notice I get assigned the quick, easy thing, and there's probably a reason for that. But we are doing review of all of our subdivision regs, zoning ordinance. So we may bring more changes as we see that may need a little closer examination. If anybody on the planning commission knows of any that you think, hey, that may be worth a closer look, a little change or anything, please contact staff. We'll do a closer look. We are anticipating, I don't know about next month, but soon, probably some changes on our notification requirements. For instance, we still notify, or we still do notice in the newspaper. We don't feel like that's very effective. We just don't think people read the newspaper. In fact, the city council over a decade ago stopped publishing a lot of their ordinances in the newspaper. They do it publicly. We're looking at some other ways to more effectively get out to the public, but again, newspaper is probably not one of them, and it's just an unnecessary cost and a time element. I think was today the deadline, Mel, so today was the deadline for next month. So we really had to get ahead of it. And then sometimes we advertise, as you've noticed, things that end up needing to be pushed or not even advertised. And it's $400, $500. So that's one you'll probably see in the future among others. But again, back to the one at hand, unless there's any additional questions or changes proposed, staff will just effectively withdraw the application.
Okay, well, anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah.
Well, this is in the public hearing section.
If
you're withdrawing it.
Yeah, so we're withdrawing, although if the public
anybody
really
wants
has
to talk
a
about
strong opinion on keeping or not keeping. So,
Okay.
all right. Like I said, I had the easy one. Thank you.
So no action. Let's not take action. The next public hearing is item 5D, ZA 25-00025 Goodwin subdivision preliminary subdivision plat.
Yes, sir. The last item is Goodwin subdivision preliminary plat. The applicant seeks preliminary plat approval to subdivide 1.6 acres into 5 lots. Property is located on Miller Memorial Road. For those of you who may not know where Miller Memorial Road is, because it's a very small kind of gravel dirt road, the Peninsula Golf Course is directly to the west. Laurel Woods subdivision is to the east. And then Miller Memorial Cemetery is to the northwest. It's an old, there's a placard out there. I think it's from the 1850s. Some of the cemetery originates from. So you see, there's the location. It's off of Fort Morgan Road. Property is currently zoned R15. So currently just a wooded property. It's got beautiful oak trees and pine trees out on the property. You guys tabled this at your July meeting. That's why it's before you tonight. We did notify everyone within 100 feet of the property. We've received correspondence from the Oyster Bay Baptist Church, who owns Miller Memorial Cemetery, as well as a resident who owns property to the north of this site. Her name is Jan Fox. The questions that were asked is who owns Miller Memorial Road? That is, according to city records, currently a basically unimproved city street. And then Miss Fox has questions about access to her property, which I'm going to show you real quick. So on the top left-hand diagram, Miss Fox's property is denoted by the red star. On a lot of old maps, there is a Renee Marie Avenue, which kind of on that top left is kind of just a faint line drawn in there. A lot of old maps show Renee Marie Avenue. Even the top right-hand plat map shows Renee Marie Avenue. This is not a public street. And from our research, it's never been a public street. It's just basically I don't know what it is. It may be an old dirt road that was used in the past. But so Miss Fox is concerned about having access to her property. So the applicant has included an access easement over the current dirt driveway, which goes to the house at 15661 as part of their subdivision plat. So that will grant access to 15661. The bottom pictures show kind of Ms. Fox also, in our conversation and email, stated that Laurel Woods was supposed to provide access via a kind of a ribbon curb. There is no access easement to her property, but they did install a ribbon curb all those years ago. So I don't know, I went back and looked in meeting minutes and there was no dedicated access easement. And I could find no record of them discussing it. But there is a ribbon curb that potentially someone could go over if they could, work with Laurel Woods subdivision. And then the picture on the bottom right is kind of what Renee Marie Avenue looks like. This is at the end of Miller Memorial Road looking towards the east. You got the cars there are parked in the, I think it's a trailer at 15661, and then Ms. Fox property would be further to the east. Again, it's R15. R15 is a single-family zoning district. Only allows single-family houses. Land use plan is medium-density residential. Goodwin subdivision complies with the land use plan. Proposed subdivision, currently this is actually 2 lots, so technically they'll be joining the lots together and then subdividing them into 5 lots. It complies with, actually all the lots are a good bit larger than the minimum 8,000 square feet lot size. They'll comply with the setbacks, and also the lot widths are greater than the minimum 60 feet of lot width. You can see between lot 1 and 2 is a fire access turnaround that was required by the fire department so that they can turn their vehicles around. And let's see. Again, it complies with all the R15 regulations. Actually, it exceeds them. Vehicle access. So Miller Memorial Road is currently a 40-foot wide public right-of-way. With this application, they will dedicate 5 additional feet. The city's minimum standard is 50 feet. So when we have an application on a street that does not comply with the 50 feet, we usually require the applicant to dedicate half of what it would bring it up to. So that's the reason we're asking for 5 feet and not the 10 feet. So that'll make that 45 feet wide right-of-way. The street will be brought into code with the new city standards. It'll be 20 feet of pavement width. It'll meet the standards we just talked about a couple applications ago. There will be a sidewalk. That sidewalk will be placed within the right-of-way, 7.5 feet from the street to allow for a planter. They are asking for a waiver to the sidewalk width. The subdivision regulations require 6 feet. They're asking for 5 feet. That's a waiver that's generally granted by the Planning Commission that allows for a wider landscape strip. They did submit their drainage plan, so Miller Memorial Road will have a 2% slope going from the west to the east, which will drain the pond into shallow swales along the front of each property. They've also provided swales between the lots and along the rear property lines to make sure no drainage runs off onto other adjacent properties. They did provide a landscape plan. It complies with the minimum landscape requirements of the subdivision regulation. Willow oak trees will be provided within the Miller Memorial Road right-of-way, every 100 feet on center. Again, it's a heavily wooded property. 10 trees will be removed for the construction of the new road, as well as the swales on the front of the properties. And then all individual trees on the lots will be preserved until the time of building permit. That's when the determination will be made of which trees can be removed and which trees will have to be saved, depending on the location of future houses and that type of thing. Would like to point out the highlighted tree is a 21-inch live oak that's smack dab in the middle of a lot. We've got a recommendation to modify the lot lines to try to position that live oak on like a boundary line, but of 2 lots. I think that's the only disagreement we have with the applicant at this point. And I'll have another slide at the end here. Fire marshal has reviewed and approved the subdivision. Engineering department has reviewed and conditionally approved the subdivision. And then we've received all the utility letters indicating that it can be properly served. Again, they're requesting a couple waivers. One waiver to reduce the sidewalk width from the required 6 feet to 5 feet. And then also requiring a waiver. Our current regulations don't allow street trees within the public street. They currently supposed to be on private properties. We prefer them to be in the street, so they're requesting a waiver to put them in the street. That's something that's typically granted by the Planning Commission also. Hopefully we'll change our regulations in the near future so you don't have to keep granting those waivers, because you've been doing that for at least a year. So we'd like to highlight subsequent, or since we sent the staff report out, there have been some revised plans that have been sent to us by the applicant that address some of the original conditions that you got in your staff report. So I'll just go through those. Condition 1, grant waivers to allow street trees within the public right-of-way and reduce the sidewalk width to 5 feet. Condition number 2 has been addressed. Then condition 3, prior to a land disturbance permit, the following items shall be satisfied. A has been done. They need to submit a street lighting plan and an electrical plan. Staff recommends the lots be reconfigured so that the 21-inch live oak currently located in the middle of Lot 3 is located near to a side property line. Again, the applicant does not agree, does not want to do that. D, most of that's been, or some of that's been changed. The only thing that remains is that all tree protection fencing shall be installed and inspected prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. And then the engineering department, they've addressed most of their comments. Only one remains, or only one portion remains. The sidewalk currently dead ends into a power pole. Just need to redesign that sidewalk so it goes around the power pole. And the last condition that we're recommending is a permit from the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and ALDOT shall be provided prior to commencement of work on state land or within the State Highway 180 West right-of-way. And just, I've got one more slide here that shows that 21-inch live oak. And then staff just kind of created a rough option of how that subdivision could be reworked to place the lot line or place the live oak kind of in the middle of a lot line so that it's not in the middle of a future kind of building pad. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Andy, who's responsible for that easement, the condition of that easement, if it's cutting through this property to those other 2 parcels?
That's a good question. How it is, it's a private easement. So
Does it connect to the roadway at all?
it will, let me go back. Sorry. Let me go back. It will connect. So it currently follows, let's see here. It currently, so it will connect to the new, the reconstructed Miller Memorial Road.
But it dead ends right there. That's
Yeah,
the only
it'll
thing
dead end
past
right very near that easement. And basically what the applicant did, there's well, you see the little dirt driveway that goes on the, that is what they did. They basically placed the easement over that little dirt driveway so that that property owner has access to their property.
Okay.
And in the recommendations where you scratched out the bioswales, that was, can you say something about those again?
So the reason those are scratched off is because,
They put them in the plan?
yeah, after we sent the staff report out on last Friday, they've submitted revised plans showing the revised drainage plan with bioswales and all that good stuff. And it has been reviewed and approved by Jenny.
Is it not bad idea to put something in covenants and restrictions where the property owners are responsible to keep them clear or whatever? Not, it's not gonna be an HOA or anything, but that is for drainage, right?
It is for drainage, yes.
Maintaining.
I think the
Not filling it in.
property owners should need to know that that's what it's for and that they're required to maintain them. I don't know how you could,
We could, yeah, because this one is a little bit different because it doesn't have open space, so it doesn't require, you could require a note on the
require-
plat. It doesn't require, well, typically
Doesn't require
covenants
covenants, yeah.
restrictions usually aren't
so you can put them in the.
generated unless they have common area and something to kind of govern, but,
Should we mention it on the plat?
but you could put it on the plat. We could put a note on the plat that,
Because it's not gonna be talked about, and then people
Yeah.
will come in there and,
or they could create a small covenants and restrictions and record them. I mean, we've had,
I think mentioning it in the plat, just so it's
Yeah.
knowledge.
Proactive.
but a plat note would work also.
Yeah, something, just to, so it doesn't die next year.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? It's a public hearing. You wanna-
Got my name is Mike Bowman. I'm the pastor of Lagoon Baptist Church, and it's the Lagoon Baptist Church that has the cemetery, not shell banks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So for record, so that road, Miller Cemetery Road, has been a city road since the city annexed it from the county. Is that correct?
I don't know when.
That's my understanding. Yeah, that would be my understanding. Yes, sir.
And people from our church have been maintaining that road for decades, and some of the old timers thought it was actually our road, but it's not. That's okay. The thing I just want to speak on is from time to time we have, of course, funerals at that cemetery, and some of y'all have attended funerals at that cemetery, and sometimes they get quite large. And the overflow parking for those funerals many times goes down Miller Cemetery Road on the west side, right adjacent to the golf course property there. So I just want to make sure that, of course, we don't block the access to the new homeowners, and also the new homeowners understand that from time to time, there's going to be a whole bunch of cars coming down there and possibly parking on that west side road next to the Peninsula Driveway. And also, we would request, if you could, that when you put the curbs in on the west side of Miller Cemetery Road, that it's a soft curb, so if people do need to park there, they can kind of edge off the road there instead of coming up on a hard curb. And that's about it. And also on your map there, it shows that the Miller Cemetery Road extends all the way to the back of the property, but actually where the cemetery begins, that property is deeded to us, and we have the deed. So that map is just wrong. It's a county map, so we understand that.
That is accurate. He did send me the deed, and the county map is wrong. It doesn't go all the way through the cemetery. It looks like it, but yeah, that's accurate.
That's about all I have.
Is this road curbed? I couldn't tell in the plan. There's no curbs at all planned for the road improvement?
How will it be maintained?
Goes off from the shoulder, and then the shoulder builds up, face underneath of it, you can't see it, because it's shot on top of it, but it's just an asphalt edge, and it goes in the grass.
Okay.
Better than a curb for those purposes.
Better in the curve for this purposes. And how far will the road go up against our cemetery property?
It'll go all the way to the property.
Okay. And of course, the property line is very vague. Does that property line go all the way to our gate, or there's a dirt area there? Huh?
Basically, right on the north side of the power pole is where.
Put that up, Randy.
So the survey marker that you had there the other day.
Can you put it back up, please?
That's the accurate. I was out there the other day.
Here's the
Yeah. Right.
Are you talking about this photo?
The one that shows the sidewalk that kind of goes around the power pole, I think.
That power pole is that there. Yeah. Right there. Where that piece of PVC pipe is, there's a stop right there of a survey. And I guess that's the corner of the thing. So the asphalt would stop right there at that point. Okay. Fine. That's my question.
Which is probably right near the entrance to the.
It is. It is just a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as we can get in there and out, and yeah, we're cool. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thanks to Andy, he's kept me pretty informed on everything about this, but I still have questions. I'm not a resident of Gulf Shores, although my family has had property here since forever, basically forever. And I am the last remaining heir to the small piece of property that abuts this new development, which we said was always lucky, we thought, because it was faced by Renee Marie Avenue, which shows on maps. It has an address for the next door neighbor property, the Joyner property. Mine's undeveloped, so we have a 0 address. And my quest is to have unfettered access to what was Renee Marie Avenue, to come from the Cemetery Street, which it would be to the west, across. If you put that other picture back up, Andy.
Sure.
That will help me. Yeah, so if you look at the red star is my lot, and so it just borders on the new developments just to the west, the very, like 30 feet, I think, left of the development's property, northernmost property, and then the majority of it abuts the common area for the other neighborhood, the Laurel Woods neighborhood. So what I'm requesting is that, as you can see, the faint blue line that goes from on the development's property and stops at the property line for the Joyner, and then the 30 feet about of my property. I would like for that to be permanently given to us so we have access to my piece of property. Without that, my piece of property is landlocked. I can't develop it, I can't sell it, I can't do anything with it. It's worthless. I'm paying taxes on it for nothing at this point. So that's my goal, is to have reestablished my access to that my property. And if you look at this photograph in the very bottom right, I just want a clarification, Andy, that I'll call the dirt road, is that what was Renee Marie Avenue?
That is as far as I can tell, is a dirt road or basically a dirt driveway going to your neighbor's house. I mean, I don't know I did some research on the Renee Marie Avenue and looking at old tax maps and things, and it just shows up as just a private drive, basically. In the past, there's no public right-of-way or public street there.
No. Now, I came into possession of this piece of property via my grandmother's husband's family, the Meekers, and they owned a big piece of property there. And my entire life, basically, what we're calling Renee Marie Avenue always was dirt. And it was the way we could drive a car up to the cemetery and take a right and go to what is now my property, but my family would be east of that. But all of the houses were accessed from, I think now would be called Meeker Lane, which didn't have a name back then, Meeker Lane, or the cemetery, and then across the top, Renee Marie Avenue, which when you look at this plot, you'll see that it's entirely part of that northernmost lot for the Goodwin Oaks subdivision. So I want to be able to get to that. And if you look to my property, and if you look at this map, you kind of can tell that dirt pathway. You can, when it gets to my piece of property, you can see they've pushed back stuff. So my piece of property is behind like a berm of debris, I don't know if it's wood, whatever, it's just debris. And so I need to have access. Andy, if you show them how they give in the top left, sorry, if you go to that well, right, not left, top right where it's circled, Andy had sent me last that they were gonna give that kind of angled access, which just gets to that neighbor's yard. I still couldn't get to my house if we do not have permanent, unfettered access via what was, I'm calling it Rene Marie Avenue, to my lot. So that's what I'm asking for. I want to be able to get to my piece of property.
But you don't actually have access to that today.
Well, I don't have access, well,
I mean,
if,
the improvement to Miller Cemetery Road doesn't change the fact that
it's not Miller
you're,
Cemetery Road I have an issue with. It's the top of that, where the circle, the black circle is in that diagram.
Right.
So what that diagram,
but that's actually a situation that's worse than it would be if there's an easement granted across that corner of that piece of property, at least to get to the joiner's property. Then maybe it's something that you can work out with the joiners to grant an easement on their southern part of their property to get over to your property. It might be something just the private property owners need to work out.
so I guess my question back again is, what's going to happen to that dirt right there with this development? What's going to happen to that dirt? Because that dirt, my understanding, that dirt that you're seeing there is part and parcel of that northernmost lot. So what's going to happen to that?
So that, my understanding, that dirt, because they place access easement over it for that neighboring property, it'll basically remain dirt. And they can drive over it to get to their house.
Right, so maybe, I'm probably not being clear enough, but if you can, I can't really point, I'm not tall enough. But that dirt road, if you see it, it's pretty much is where you can see now, it ends. It basically ends, it's still on the Goodwin property, but it kind of ends at the western corner of my piece of property. I'm just asking if it's good enough to be available all the way through the Joyner property, why can't it just be available to mine, the last 30 feet, still be part of that easement that gives me unfettered access to my property?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, I have no.
I mean, it's kind of a decision between the owner of the
Property
property.
owners are gonna have to get together and come up with some easements.
Okay, so the
Either this
question
or
is,
lot.
are you with the development? Somebody here with development? Oh, their engineer. So do you know, the part that you're talking about, the Joyner part, show me exactly what you're giving.
Which is the Godwin property. It's gonna somebody zoom out. That's the northern part of it. This is their northern lot that we're subdividing.
For the record, I'm Chris Lee with Lee Engineering Company. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. So right here, this little corner right here is, if you'll see it right here, just to the, I guess to the right of that power pole, that is this dirt road that goes back into this property here. So there's also an easement, there's got to be utility easement for those power poles that go back through there. So if there's a utility easement there for this property owner, it should be fairly easy for you to get a access easement on that in this same strip right here, because this dirt road, this is the only portion of that dirt road that is currently on our developer's property, is this little corner.
Well, then explain to me, if this, what is this? This is my property line? See, that this is my property line. That's the Joyner property, that's my property line? Mm-hmm.
Is where your property starts. This corner right here.
Right.
A little triangle. So your property just sits here.
Right. So you're only, what's happening to this part here? What's happening to this
So
here?
that is just a utility and side setback where they can't build a house.
Right, so looking at that here, based on what I understand, is that dirt in that picture?
No.
No? So where?
That dirt in that picture is this line, this little triangle right here.
It's way bigger than that, because I just came from there.
Well, but all that dirt is on this property, not on our property.
So
correct?
that, my next question is this, that power line or that post,
Yes.
whose property is that?
That power pole is right there on the corner of the city right away.
Right, so, but on this side of that pole is Goodwin. Which is the Renee Marie Avenue
The
access.
picture is looking this way. This way, so there's just a little tiny corner of that dirt road that's on.
So they're gonna give a triangle of your lot.
Yes.
And leave that. Why can't I get access to the rest of it? If they can let one person get access to the triangle, why can't I get access to the rest of it? It's already
So
dirt.
We're giving both of y'all access through this triangle that has been used for here. So if you work out with them to get access across their property to here, then you both have access.
So
So is this subdivision changing the current access?
It's actually making it, in my opinion, it's actually making it permanent to get across this
We
property.
don't have to give the easement because technically there's no road there, but,
Yeah,
being
you
good
need to get,
neighbors, we'd like to give them the easement to get to the property.
So the answer is she's gonna get an easement to get to her property.
Yes.
but
So
how,
if she gets an easement to get to the road that's being used to the neighbors, and then she can get an easement from the neighbors to her property.
Okay, from the neighbor.
so
And the original application did not include this easement. I've obviously corresponded with Ms. Fox. I sent some of her concerns to Mr. Lieb, and they made this change to provide at least access to
the Joyner property.
to the first property.
the first
and
property that actually has
change
access
To the next property.
today.
So therefore I have no remedy except for a legal remedy to get access to my property.
You could work with the property owner, the joiners.
So to say to the Joiners, you'll have to give me access across your
Well,
property.
you can approach it any way you
Yeah,
want,
you-
but I would say.
I would ask nicely to allow them to have an easement across the southern portion of their property so you gain access to your property.
Yeah, then what happens?
Then it becomes a court issue
Well, then
between private
it's
property
the
owners.
legal
Yeah.
way, but this subdivision here is not affecting
This isn't
it.
affecting that at
It's
all.
not affecting it
The way they've
right
been
now.
using it, we're not encumbering it the way they've been using it.
Right, I mean,
So it's a different matter than the subdivision, really, if the subdivision is not affecting it. But I understand you're concerned about wanting to get an easement, but the easement is over someone else's property that is not involved in this subdivision.
well, this is the point. I'm still confused. Obviously I'm still confused.
Yeah,
sure.
This is my next best friend. He was my early best friend.
Joe Emerson, I work at Gulf Shores.
Hey, Joe.
Jan has engaged my services as her agent. I've been looking at this and the email exchanges between her and Andy. Got a question because survey, it shows the utility easement running adjacent to the property line. So it doesn't appear that this thing by survey is on the Joyner property. It appears that it's on the subject.
Because the subdivision requirements make you add.
So what's being shown here is not what's actually on the ground?
It's more than what's on.
Okay.
So if you look right here, there's a power pole here,
Mhm.
and then there's another one here. So there's an easement underneath this power line here.
Okay.
And then so as part of the subdivision regulations, we're required to do 10-foot drainage and utility easements around, just a blanket easement around all property lines.
Okay, and let me ask this question. Of course, this would be obviously maybe not for you, but for the property owner. Would he be interested in granting that easement down the required drainage and utility easement?
That could be an offline conversation that
Yeah.
we don't have to, and obviously the owners aren't here, so I
Yeah.
can't speak to them, but we can do that offline.
Do you guys have any advice for that as far as considering that it is a drainage utility easement? Would that,
I mean, it's whatever the property owners agree to for where the easement goes.
but as far as driving easement, would that be an issue for having that combined use? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's outside of what we're doing here.
Okay, so it wasn't running into any conflict with having that purpose on top of the drainage easement?
No.
Okay.
I can't see it.
Well, it sounds like that we need to approach the joiners
Yeah.
and,
Well, I still, you
It-
keep saying that because when I look at the maps prior to your maps, because I have the maps for the subdivision because your subdivision, Laurel Oak subdivision, when they were in contact with my parents, before my parents were gonna build there, but Katrina and then death beat them to that. So, that portion, I keep saying that portion from Renamer Avenue didn't fall on Joyner, doesn't fall on Fox. It fell on what was Goodwin, I think is now, I don't know the name, but the new people's name, but the Goodwin people. So that's where, you know, I understand he said he's redone all this stuff, but it never changed where Renee Murray Avenue marks on these maps the Phantom Street of Renee Murray Avenue. That's where my confusion comes in. Why it now has to jump onto Joyner when it never was on Joyner. It was always on Goodwin.
Another option is to talk to the Laurel Woods HOA. I mean, they may grant you an easement. I don't know, but that's another option.
And the adjacent property holds a Renee Marie address, correct?
Yes, the Joyner property is a Renee Murray address. It's a long address, 51 something. It's a long address.
Yeah, Baldwin County addresses things on private roads, dirt streets all the time. They'll address anything. They will.
So, you would cut there, go over the joiners, then below the joiners would be this easement that nobody can build or do anything on. That's at the edge of, the top edge of his property, I'm calling it your property. So I would go over that, go through the joiner's yard, I guess. And there just would be a wider a swath. Just don't get over into his piece of property. Drive.
Well, we haven't had the conversation.
I mean, that's to me what it looks
If we
like.
can't do anything here about that
Yeah, I know. You
easement,
can't do
then
it. I
we
was
gotta
hoping
vote
you
on.
could. You can vote on it.
It's
I
here.
mean, I obviously disagree. I'll have to talk to your people or whatever. Yeah, because.
People to
Thank
people.
you. Oh, this is.
People to people is a lot shorter than a planning commission meeting.
Do y'all have any questions for me?
I was thinking about, you said that the road will not have curbs or anything like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So let's go back to the first thing we talked about 2 hours ago. When that road deteriorates, who will be responsible for maintaining that road as a good road and not overgrown with the kudzu like Peninsula Golf Course fence is right now over, you know, I'm thinking about the,
Eventually, the city will will take care of the maintenance on that street.
okay.
So they'll build it, they'll put up a 2-year maintenance surety, maintenance surety. After that, they can ask the city to accept. Well, it's a little different.
But why not the curbs like every other?
It's just a little
neighborhood
different,
has
but-
Curbs, why not this one?
Because it's kind of a low impact development kind of thing, and we're pitching the road all to one side, put it in bioswales, it's less hardscapes, it's less intrusive on the environment.
Because of environmental water, right? Okay. My people would would probably ask, I just want to have an answer for them. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? We close the public hearing. Anybody, any more comments, questions? Any motions?
Motion for approval, ZA 25-000-25 with staff recommendations. If there was any.
Can you add the note on the plat for property owners maintain the swales, drainage swales? You okay with that?
He's nodding affirmative.
Yes. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion approved. Hearing of persons not listed on the formal agenda. Bill, did you have something to say?
Are you sure?
I'll just look through the whole thing.
She did. All right, any other business from staff?
I think the only thing that we forgot to mention is in your staff reports, we included a recommended motion at the end of the staff report. We'll start doing that just to kind of help you
All
out.
that.
That's something new. We just thought maybe,
We probably deviated from it.
try to take care of our planning commissioners.
I like it.
Thanks be to Scott. He's got a lot of new ideas and good ideas.
Anything else in the staff report they could help you tell us, we'll incorporate.
Get it sooner.
No.
Okay.
I said it.
So I feel a motion to adjourn coming on.
Move to adjourn. I hope everybody voted because you got one